All right. We are live. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for joining me on a normal time on a Thursday night, like always. We have so much to talk about. And yes, I'll be talking about that woman from Oklahoma. As always, before we start, you can support the channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant. Please do that. And you can also subscribe to my newsletter by going to friendlyatheist.com. And you should also do that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started because I don't know how long this is going to take. Thank you to Den for helping out with everything. If you have comments, questions, leave them in the comments. Den will make sure I see them at the end of stories. We're going to start tonight by talking about this young woman who's been all over right-wing media this week because of an essay she wrote for her college. And that is not a normal reason to be in the news. So what the hell did she do that makes everything just go viral? So this woman's name is Samantha Fulnecki. She is a conservative student at the University of Oklahoma. And she says she's the victim of religious discrimination because she got a failing grade on a homework assignment. And you can be the judge in just a moment of whether or not she deserved a failing grade. So here's what happened. And let's try to go chronologically here because there's so much happening in this particular story. She is a psych major at the University of Oklahoma. She's a junior. She is pre-med. She wants to be a doctor. And she was taking a class called Lifespan Development. It's about development throughout your life. Nothing weird about that. And I guess at some point in this class, the professors or the instructors, like the grad school instructors for this class, said they're going to read a decade-old article called Gender Typicality, Peer Relations, and Mental Health. And I have like 100 tabs open. If I can get this one to open, I will show it to you. But it's basically a decade-old research paper. And basically the assignment went like this. We want you to read the paper and just react to it. Have a discussion about what that paper said. And there's a lot of ways you could do that. You could respond and say, I disagree with the researchers' conclusions. I think they did not go far enough in their methodology. Or I think I see what their conclusion was, but I have an issue with it for these reasons. And all of those are legitimate things to be upset about if you were reading a paper like this. But if you're curious, the paper in question basically showed that students who are gender typical, they are born male, they look like men, whatever, or they're born female, they look female, what have you, they tend to be perceived as more popular, and that boys who are gender atypical suffer worse mental health outcomes. Now, as with a lot of papers, if you asked me to guess how that paper would have gone, that is the conclusion I would have come to. But it's always interesting to see how researchers try to quantify this and prove it and things like that. Now, the assignment in question said students can talk about anything regarding this paper. They could talk about whether the issue was even worth studying, how they connected to the research, or maybe they did not connect to the research, how the study related to other areas of interest, maybe alternative explanations of what the researchers found, whatever. Basically, the teachers did not care what the students said. They just wanted students to seriously grapple with the article they had to read. Read it, think about it, react to it, show us that you have the ability to work with these ideas. The rubric literally said, and I'm quoting here, the best reaction papers illustrate that students have read the assigned materials and engaged in critical thinking about some aspect of the article. So that was pretty straightforward. I also want to show you one other thing here, which is at the very bottom, right over here. This is the rubric for the assignment, and I just want to draw your attention to the very bottom here. I'll remove myself. Look at the last 3 lines. This is what they were going to get graded on, 25 points. Does the paper show a clear tie-in to the assigned article? Does the paper present a thoughtful reaction or response to the article rather than a summary? And is the paper clearly written? That's 25 points right there. That's what the assignment was, not an issue. So, Fulnecki, she didn't connect her essay to the article. She didn't react to anything that was in it, anything that it actually said. And the best thing that I could tell you about her writing is that I think she would have deserved a very good score if she wrote it in second grade. So what happened is she turns in her essay. She gets a grade of 0 out of 25. And honestly, that's kind of generous. So here's what I can do. I'm going to show you her entire essay because you better believe this was posted online. And you can decide if I'm being overly critical or not here. But you tell me, do you think this person deserved a 0 out of 25? All right, here we go. Again, they had to read this research paper and react to it. Here's what Samantha wrote. And I'm jumping down right here. Let's read it together, shall we? It's a 2-page paper. This article was very thought-provoking and caused me to thoroughly evaluate the idea of gender and the role it plays in our society. Not a bad start, I guess. Like, if it's thought-provoking, I'm very curious what provoked you. Though I would also say that's the sort of opening you could write to anything about this topic. It has nothing to do with the paper. The article discussed peers using teasing as a way to enforce gender norms. I do not necessarily see this as a problem. Okay. I mean, I guess that's a reaction, but man, you're opening your paper and you're like, you know what I like? Bullying. Anyway, God made male and female and made us differently from each other on purpose and for a purpose. God is very intentional with what he makes, and I believe trying to change that would only do more harm. Gender roles and tendencies should not be considered stereotypes. Women naturally want to do womanly things because God created us with those womanly desires in our hearts. That is such a crazy sentence. I want to read that one more time. Let's do it together, shall we? Women naturally want to do womanly things because God created us with those womanly desires in our hearts. Womanly. The same goes for men. Men are also womanly. God created men in the image of his courage and strength, and he created women in the image of his beauty. He intentionally created women differently than men, and we should live our lives with that in mind. Let's just pause there for a second. What have we learned so far about the article she was supposed to read? The answer is nothing. I learned nothing about the paper she was supposed to read. I know a lot about what she thinks about trans people or people who are gender nonconforming. I don't actually know much about what she learned in the paper. Like, she's reacting to the word trans. She is not reacting to the paper she was supposed to be reading. You get the idea here? This is why this is a very strange article. She doesn't mention the title of it. She doesn't quote from it. There's no indication she read anything beyond the title and the abstract, right? Like, she jumps right into what the Bible says as if she's delivering a sermon. And what's weird to me is that even bad Christian writers, when they're quoting the Bible, they will always cite chapter and verse. She doesn't even bother doing that. Like, the issue isn't that she's proselytizing in an essay, it's that she's giving a generic anti-trans response when the question was to respond to a very specific paper. Anyway, she claims the article caused her to thoroughly evaluate the idea of gender and the role it plays in our society, but the essay doesn't show us any indication of this thought-provoking that happened. The most surprising thing about that opening is that the first line was not, Webster's defines gender as ... So that was just the beginning. And maybe you think, well, she has to get more detailed in the rest of the paper, right? No. Let's read the next paragraph. It is frustrating to me when I read articles like this and discussion posts from my classmates of so many people trying to conform to the same mundane opinion so they do not step on people's toes. Everyone's trying to conform to the same mundane opinion, which is that people deserve respect. Is that apparently a very boring opinion that you're like, oh, I'm so bored. All these people want civil rights. And you think they all are saying that because they don't want to step on people's toes? Or maybe they're saying that on the off chance that maybe they actually believe people deserve civil rights? I think that is a cowardly and insincere way to live. It is important to use the freedom of speech we have been given in this country, and I personally believe that eliminating gender in our society would be detrimental, as it pulls us farther from God's original plan for humans. I didn't know I wanted to eliminate gender, but thank you for telling me. By the way, I know someone has pointed this out in the comments. How come when this Samantha woman is going to a new paragraph, why isn't there an indentation? Nothing? You just go to the next paragraph and start writing? Okay, that is weird. What else does she say here? It is perfectly normal for kids to follow gender stereotypes because that is how God made us. The reason so many girls want to feel womanly and care for others in a motherly way is not because they feel pressured to fit into social norms. It's because God created and chose them to reflect his beauty and his compassion in that way, which is why they feel pressured to do that stuff. Like, does she not see the contradiction in that? In Genesis, God says that it is not good for man to be alone. So he created a helper for man, which is a woman. Many people assume the word helper in this context to be condescending and offensive to women. By the way, at this point, we're so far strayed from the paper she had to read. Like, now we're just stream of consciousness. What did they tell you in church on Sunday? However, the original word in Hebrew is ezer kenegdo, and that directly translates to helper equal to. Is that proper grammar? I don't know. Additionally, God describes himself in the Bible using ezer kenegdo, or helper, and he describes his Holy Spirit as our helper as well. This shows the importance God places on the role of the helper, women's roles. God does not view women as less significant than men. He created us with such intentionally and care, and he made women in his image of being a helper and in the image of his beauty. What the hell did I just read? I feel like there's a missing word or three and maybe a comma somewhere that I should have read. I don't know anymore what's happening. If leaning into that role means I am following gender stereotypes, then I am happy to be following a stereotype that aligns with the gifts and abilities God gave me as a woman. First of all, who said she's following gender stereotypes? She's quoting something that I don't know where she got it from. If she's quoting something, tell me where you're getting it from. That's how citations work. What is happening here? This thing makes no sense. She almost offered some actual substance right up front when she said, I don't agree with the article or what my classmates said in our discussion post, but then she never bothered telling us which things she disagreed with that were said. She just went right back to her sermon, going on a tangent about gender roles, which, again, has nothing to do with the paper she was supposed to read. Like, if this is a reaction to a paper on trad wives, okay, maybe we're getting somewhere, but it's not. No one cares what she thinks about the role of women. That's not the assignment. And if you're going to argue that women are predisposed to feel womanly and care for others in a motherly way, I think you should have to explain why so many people, including a lot of Christian women, disagree with you. She didn't bother doing that. All right, we're almost done here, but we got a couple hundred more words to go. By the way, I see this comment. She's quitting ChatGPT. I wish she used ChatGPT. Maybe she would have offered something of substance. But anyway, let's go to the next unindented paragraph. I do not think men and women are pressured to be more masculine or feminine. I thought that's what God wanted. I strongly disagree with the idea from the article. This is good. This is a good start. that encouraging acceptance of diverse gender expressions could improve students' confidence. Look, that's a great sentence. Now explain what the paper said and why you disagree with it. What does she do? Society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders and everyone should be whatever they want to be is demonic and severely harms American youth. That's cute. Who cares? The paper didn't say that. That's just you riffing. Also, society says everyone should be whatever they want to be. I don't know. Where are you getting this from? I do not want kids to be teased or bullied in school. Girl, you opened up your paper by saying, I don't think teasing people is a big deal. However, pushing the lie that everyone has their own truth and everyone can do whatever they want and be whoever they want is not biblical whatsoever. The Bible says that our lives are not our own, but that our lives and bodies belong to the Lord for his glory. I live my life based on this truth and firmly believe that there would be less gender issues and insecurities, I think she means fewer, in children if they were raised knowing that they do not belong to themselves, but they belong to the Lord. Again, okay? I mean, this is a boring thing to say in church, but like, this ain't the assignment. What are you doing? Why are we doing this? This makes no sense. She kind of came close when she said, I disagree. But instead of backing it up with any evidence or explaining what the researchers got wrong, she just said accepting trans people or the tolerance of trans people is demonic. She then concluded, let's just finish this off. She concluded by returning to the sermon. Overall, reading articles such as this one encourage me to one day raise my children knowing that they have a heavenly Father who loves them and cherishes them deeply, and that having their identity firmly rooted in who he is will give them the satisfaction and acceptance that the world can never provide for them. My prayer for the world, and specifically for American society and youth, is that they would not believe the lies being spread from Satan that make them believe they are better off as another gender than what God made them. I pray that they feel God's love and acceptance as who he originally created them to be. Ma'am, this is an Arby's. What the hell are you doing? So, no one asked what her beliefs were about this stuff, not in the way she delivered it, and she didn't show any indication that she read the paper, that she understood the paper, and if she disagreed with it, what's she basing that disagreement on? Like, I saw that the paper said this. That the paper is wrong. How do I know that? Well, I don't like trans people. Like, that's a horrible way to write a paper. If you want to point to other research that maybe contradicts the conclusions of this one, that's what we should be seeing here. That's how a response paper works. Like, it's no wonder to me that she got a 0 on this paper. It's so bad that if she submitted this at Liberty University, they would have given her a 0 on this. Like, very much I'm thinking of the Billy Madison quotation. What is it? At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought, and everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. So, here's what happens. She writes that paper. Let me correct that. She writes that paper. She turns it in, she gets a 0, and then immediately she complains to the instructors of the course. And she's like, why'd I get a 0 on this? I did the work. And I will tell you that the instructors in this course were so much nicer than I feel like I would have been. And here's the thing. I know what the instructors said because this was also shared online. Check this out. And now I swear, you're already mad at her for writing that crappy essay. You're going to be even angrier at her when you see how kind her instructors are. Let me jump to this. Here we go. Here's the instructor. Please note that I am not deducting points because you have certain beliefs, but instead I am deducting points for you posting a reaction paper that does not answer the questions for this assignment. It contradicts itself, heavily uses personal ideology over empirical evidence in a scientific class, and is at times offensive. While you are entitled to your own personal beliefs, there is an appropriate time or place to implement them in your reflections. I encourage all students to question or challenge the course material with other empirical findings or testable hypotheses, but using your own personal beliefs to argue against the findings of not only this article, but the findings of countless articles across psychology, biology, sociology, etc., is not best practice. They don't need to say this at this point, but they kept going. You argue that abiding by normative gender roles is beneficial. It's perfectly fine to believe this. But to then say that everyone should act the same, while also saying that people are not pressured into gendered expectations, is contradictory, especially since your arguments reflect a religious pressure to act in gender stereotypical ways. You can say that strict gender norms don't create gender stereotypes, but that isn't true by definition of what a stereotype is. Please note that acknowledging gender stereotypes does not immediately denote a negative connotation, a nuance this article discusses. This article, which this woman did not read. Additionally, to call an entire group of people demonic is highly offensive, especially a minoritized population. You are entitled to your own beliefs, but this isn't a vague narrative of society pushes lies, but instead the result of countless years developing psychological and scientific evidence for these claims and directly interacting with the communities involved. You may personally disagree with this, but that doesn't change the fact that every major psychological, medical, pediatric, and psychiatric association in the United States acknowledges that biologically and psychologically, sex and gender is neither binary nor fixed. Someone send this to like Jerry Coyne and Dawkins and shit. I implore you apply some more perspective and empathy in your work. If you personally disagree with the findings, then by all means share your criticisms. But make sure to do so in a way that is appropriate and using the methodology of empirical psychology as aligned with the learning goals in this class. If you have any additional questions or concerns about this, or you would like some additional educational resources, I would be happy to discuss this further and provide you with them. That is such helpful, constructive feedback from this instructor saying, here's why I gave you a 0. I'm not failing you because I don't like your views. I'm failing you because you didn't do the assignment. You have no idea what psychology is, apparently. If you want to respond, you got to do it the right way. That's what the class demands. Meanwhile, this young woman is acting like she deserves a perfect score because she's a Christian. And the instructor is like, no, I'm giving you a 0 because you didn't do the work. Again, way nicer than this instructor had any right to be. And then check this out. After all of that, another instructor pops in. Samantha, I am the other instructor for this course, and I have also taken the time to read your paper. I concur with the first instructor on the grade you received. This paper should not be considered as a completion of the assignment. Everyone has different ways in which they see the world. But in an academic course such as this, you are being asked to support your ideas with empirical evidence and higher level reasoning. I find it concerning that you state at the beginning of your paper that you don't think bullying or teasing is a bad thing. In addition, your paper directly and harshly criticizes your peers and their opinions, which are just as valuable as yours. Disagreeing with others is fine, but there's a respectful way to go about it. That goes for discussion posts as well as reaction papers. Please employ more thoughtfulness in your future assignments. Wow. So again, now you have 2 instructors who are way nicer than they have any right to be, and they're just trying to explain why she's not getting credit on this paper, and she doesn't deserve any credit on this paper. So, are we all on the same page here? I hope. Like, she didn't react to the paper. I heard from a friend this week, and I mean that sincerely. I heard from someone I respect who said, I don't think she deserved a 0. I think she deserved a low grade, but she did respond to the paper, just not in the way anyone really hoped she would. And I still disagree with that assessment because any response paper, you have to actually respond to what is being said. You don't just say, oh, what's the topic about? Oh, it's about that. Then I'm just going to riff on that, and I don't care what the paper said. Like, you could read this entire response from Fulnecki and never learn a damn thing about what the actual original article actually said. That's why it's a bad response paper. And it wouldn't be hard to just incorporate her bigotry, her Christian bigotry, into an actual response. If she said, the article said this, and I quote, blah, 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 but not that is wrong. Not just because my religion teaches me that it's wrong, but because another article published here says the opposite conclusion. I might disagree with that, but that is the type of response you would expect to see. She did not do that. So that is basically what happened here. I think both instructors made clear we're not coming after you because of your beliefs or your views. And in fact, another reason we know that is because in an article published by the Oklahoman, check this out. Fulnecki said she has cited the Bible without issue on past assignments in the course, pointing to 2 essays she received full credit for. So she has talked about the Bible in other homework assignments for this class, and no one punished her for it. Because of course they didn't if she did the work. I don't know what everyone's upset about at this point. I've gotten a bad grade on a homework assignment in college. You know what I did? I didn't go public with it and blame the teacher. Because I'm mature. Anyway, so what did this woman do? What did Samantha Fulnecki do? She is a conservative who seems to think of herself as the next Riley Gaines. She wants to be the Riley Gaines of essay writing. She wants to fail upwards because the alternative is admitting you're just not that good compared to your peers. And in the conservative Christian world, all 5th place trophies deserve gold medals as long as you believe in Jesus. So what did this woman do? Samantha, instead of responding to the professors who wrote those thoughtful messages, she decided to send out an email. Who did she send an email to? Check this out. Fulnecki emailed Republican Governor Kevin Stitt, the OU's president, the dean of her college, members of the media, and Ryan Walters' conservative anti-teachers union group fewer than 4 hours after her instructor justified her grade. 4 days later, Fulnecki went through the university's internal process to file a formal discrimination complaint and an academic appeal. This woman got a bad grade, and she wrote an email to the governor saying, excuse me, governor, I think you need to step in. I got a 0, and I think we all know Christians don't deserve bad grades. Who does that? That is Christian privilege for you. You get a bad grade and you whine to your governor. What a loser. By the way, the last line here, like right over here, if she did have a problem with her grade, the last thing is the only thing she should have done, which is you're allowed to file a formal complaint and request an academic appeal. Every college has some sort of process like this. And listen, the right answer for the college is to be like, okay, we see your complaint. You're wrong. You still get a 0. That's what should happen here. But she wrote a letter to all the most powerful people in her state. And that's how she thought she would take care of this. She also said in a statement somewhere, let me see if I could pull this up here. Yeah, here we go. She said in her email to the governor, in this situation, my instructor found it offensive to be quoting from the Bible. That's not at all what happened. I don't believe I should receive a failing grade on an assignment based upon my opinion. That's not at all what happened. I am reaching out to all of you to see if you can help me. Then she told the newspaper, to be what I think is clearly discriminated against for my beliefs and using my freedom of speech, and especially for my religious beliefs, I think that's just absurd. None of that is what happened. This woman does not live in the real world where she could take to heart the fact that she ain't good at school. So, again, not punished for quoting the Bible. The professors were fine with her quoting the Bible, but you still have to respond to the paper. She wasn't punished for being a Christian. She was punished for turning in a crappy essay that didn't complete the assignment. So, if the goal of all of this was to get attention, guess what? She is getting that attention now. And, like, honestly, if she wrote a better essay, it might be easier to argue that she was being discriminated against. But honestly, that paper is so embarrassing, you would have to be a moron to defend it. So, guess who's defending it? That would be Turning Point USA, the Charlie Kirk group at University of Oklahoma. And I just want to, here's the beginning here. For a psych course at the University Oklahoma, Samantha was asked to write this essay. In her essay, this is what she said. She received 0 points, blah, blah, blah. But look at this that I highlighted. We at Turning Point OU stand with Samantha. We should not be letting mentally ill professors around students. Clearly, this professor lacks the intellectual maturity to set her own bias aside and take grading seriously. Professors like this are the very reason conservatives can't voice their beliefs in the classroom. My God, we are talking, this entire story so far has been about white people in Oklahoma, white conservatives in Oklahoma. And they're like, you know what we need here? A safe space. Because it's really hard for us as white conservatives in Oklahoma. And then this may be my favorite line of this whole thing. Kudos to Samantha for leading by example and standing for what she believes in. University of Oklahoma, do better. Yes, kudos to Samantha. No one... There are so many Turning Point chapters in Oklahoma, and none of them have anyone who knows English or basic grammar. Like, did Samantha Fulnecki write that caption too? Anyway, I will say I appreciated the comments right under this post because look at this. Look at this. This is like the most popular comment. Terrible essay. She cites 0 sources and appears to be barely literate. This is embarrassing. The rise of anti-intellectualism is honestly so sad. Those are people chiming in on Turning Point USA's thing. I also appreciated this comment that was somewhere on that list. I think she failed because it didn't follow the rubric and the essay sounds like it was written by a 10-year-old. So, at the time she posted that, Governor Kevin Stitt had not responded, and the school came out initially with a generic statement saying, we have a process if you don't like your grade. That's filing the academic complaint, which Samantha did later. But after Turning Point USA posted that, and after people chimed in, all the right-wing politicians started chiming in as well. So first, let me show you State Senator Dusty Devers. He's like the most Republican-y senator with the porniest name. But he said this incident raises serious First Amendment concerns before saying this would never happen to a Muslim. Look at this. This is Dusty Devers. If a conservative professor gave a Muslim or transgender student a 0 for expressing their convictions, the university would treat it as a civil rights crisis. The standard must be the same when the student is a Christian. Listen, if a Muslim or a trans person wrote an essay that bad and then started complaining that they were victims of discrimination, you bet your ass we would make fun of them too, because they deserve it. So that's Dusty Devers for you. There's also this guy, Shane Jett. He is also a state senator. Let's see what he said here. This is grossly unacceptable. The University of Oklahoma has failed miserably yet again to address this malignant DEI cancer that has metastasized across every department. Why? Because they have standards? This is newest in a long list of grievances endured by our students at the University of Oklahoma. This is a failure of leadership. This institution has lost its moral compass and legitimacy. It is high time, ... Look at this. We should remove OU president Joseph Heraz and replace him with someone who has the moral courage to actually lead the university instead of this anemic, irresponsible, amoral placeholder. This guy wants to fire the president of the university because a Christian got a bad grade on one homework assignment. That's where Republicans are at today. This one also amused me. Justin Humphrey, he's a state representative, and he decided to issue a press release talking about himself in the third person. Representative Justin Humphrey today declared his public support of Samantha Fulnecki. I believe the instructor at OU, a graduate teaching assistant, violated the free speech rights of the student by giving her a failure grade for her Bible-based essay. None of these people could survive like one day in a 101 level class. And by the way, one thing I have not mentioned because it's irrelevant is that the instructor in question who gave Samantha the 0 is transgender. And it doesn't matter because, as the instructor pointed out in the response, I'm not grading you based on your beliefs. I'm grading you because you didn't do the assignment. And this is what one other state lawmaker said. This is Gabe Woolley. He's a state representative as well. And what do we get here? We just have misgendering. This individual is a man presenting himself as a woman. I don't know what he's gone through that led him down this path, and my heart genuinely breaks for him. But personal trauma and personal decisions do not grant anyone the authority to misuse their position or to demand that others affirm arguments that are completely unscientific. Basically saying the professor failed Samantha because the professor is trans. That's not why. I know that because Turning Point USA made the essay and the response from the professors very transparent. We saw what they said. We saw her essay. We can all read and find out how bad her essay is. Like, I would be embarrassed if a shitty paper I wrote went public by my supposed allies who are trying to show how I definitely did not deserve to be failed. It's like, oh no, you bared your entire ass, and now everyone can see you're not smart. Oh, what else should I show you? I forgot to show you this right here. This is Samantha's mother, Christy Fulnecki, who has the MAGA look. Christy has been spending days now just retweeting support of her daughter, retweeting anti-trans BS. And in case you're wondering, by the way, Christy Fulnecki is a lawyer who apparently defended the January 6th rioters. So that shows you what family we're talking about here. What else can I share with you? Some of you may be wondering, why would a student like Samantha even bother going to a public university? Clearly, she wants to be a fundamentalist Christian. Clearly, she can't do the work required of a public university. Why not lower your standards and just go to a Christian school? And I think the reason she didn't go to a Christian school is because at OU, she was there, as far as I could tell, on a tennis scholarship, which, you know what? If you earned it, good for you. This says that in the 2024-2025 school year, she was a redshirt freshman, which basically means they wanted her on the team, but she wasn't quite there as an athlete. So they just said, you're not going to play this year, but come to practices, learn how the team works, and you could start playing next year. And now we still get another 4 years of eligibility for you. And maybe the next 4 years, you'll be a better athlete. Like, that's a normal thing. College athletic programs do that all the time. You see it in basketball and football. So I think she went to the university because she was there on a tennis scholarship. And in fact, after her freshman year, I found this and I laughed out loud. At Oklahoma issued a press release. Oklahoma places 129 on the SEC Spring Academic Honor Roll. And if you scroll down this list of who made the honor roll, where do we have it? She's on here somewhere. Yeah, there she is. Women's tennis. There's Samantha right there. She made the academic honor roll for the SEC, which honestly at this point tells me more about the SEC's low standards than anything Samantha's doing in class. I will also show you that when I looked at the women's tennis roster this year, where theoretically she should be playing her first year of tennis where she's eligible to play, she is not on the roster. And I wonder what's up with that. Like, was she not good enough to actually make the team? Is she like just bitter against the school now? I have no idea, but I did find that curious. Let me wrap this up with a couple things here. Since all of this went viral, the University of Oklahoma has now issued a press release. And initially, this, like, I don't know why they felt like they have to respond to this, but they did. Like, the University of Oklahoma takes seriously concerns involving First Amendment rights. And they say, upon receiving notice from the student on the grading of an assignment, the university immediately began a full review of the situation and has acted swiftly to address the matter. You know what colleges never act quickly on when like serious shit happens at a college? How many times have we heard stories about college students getting assaulted or something and their school just drags their heels on doing anything about it? But man, Christian kid gets a 0. Boom. Gotta take care of that. The other thing I wanted to point out here is look right here at the top of this. The graduate student instructor has been placed on administrative leave pending the finalization of this process. To ensure fairness in the process, a full-time professor is serving as the course instructor for the remainder of this semester. So, what is going on there? It sounds very much like the trans professor who gave her the 0 so far is the only person to receive any kind of punishment for what has happened, even though this is very clearly like just a right-wing pile-on for someone who didn't deserve a better grade. And now they're taking it all out on the trans instructor who gave her the 0, when that's the only person who seems to have handled themselves correctly in all this. By the way, in response to that awful post from the University of Oklahoma, a lot of people chimed in with this meme, which I found funny. This is a math test. And if you say 2 + 6 = Jesus and 8 + 3 = Gob, and your teacher gives you 0 out of 20 F, and then you post, I think my math teacher hates me for my beliefs. And if you think that's funny because that's ludicrous and that would never happen, that's exactly what happened in this class. So the meme fits. So here's where we're at. At the end of the day, this is only about accountability. This is not about religious persecution. This is about Samantha Fulnecki's absolute refusal to accept any responsibility for the fact that she's a bad student. She didn't fail this assignment because she's a devout Christian. Guess what? It's Oklahoma. It's the University of Oklahoma. I guarantee you there were other Christians in that class. She didn't fail because she quoted the Bible. She did that in the past. That wasn't an issue. She didn't fail this assignment because she quoted the Bible. She failed because she didn't do the assignment. She didn't indicate she read it. She didn't indicate she understood anything it said. It's not clear she can form a response to the conversation people are actually having. Even an assignment like this is not a culture war battle. Sometimes you just have to do the work. All I learned from reading her essay is she's not prepared for psychology, much less medical school, which apparently is where she wants to go. She's not prepared for a world of higher education. And I don't know what her past education was like, but she is not prepared for whatever class she's taking right now. She's not prepared for higher education. She's frankly not prepared for lower education at this point. And what's weird is in the past couple of days, I have seen all these right-wing podcasters and Fox News channel. They've been really jumping on this. They're all on board the Samantha train. Like Riley Gaines has to be feeling jealous right now. Like, wow, everyone's supporting another Christian loser? Like, that's my thing. I don't know why we're doing this. Like, again, all she had to do is be thoughtful and do the assignment. And if she got punished because she cited the Bible, she might actually have a case, but that's not what happened here. So, I don't know. That's the persecution narrative. It's very strong, it's very lucrative on the right. And it's frustrating that this is what everyone's arguing about. But I encourage anybody, if you're unhappy with this outcome and you think she was being persecuted, go read the article and you tell me why a college junior thinks that's worthy of an A plus, or at least a higher score than a 0. Because honestly, a 0 is being generous. She should not be in that class at this point. It's embarrassing that other classmates of hers have to deal with this. And it's especially got to be frustrating for the instructor who did everything right and is the only person getting punished here. By the way, that instructor recently got an award for doing something in the field of psychology. I don't know what it was, but the Department of Psychology at the University of Oklahoma posted on Facebook, hey, congrats to this grad student who got this award. We're super proud of this person. And when I went to go check, that post was deleted. And I think that's probably because right-wing trolls probably brigaded the comment section on that post. But also, like, where's the university? Why aren't any of these people at the school, in the governor's office? Why is nobody standing up for the teacher in question? Because if Christians can get away with whining and getting media attention because they failed a class that they deserve to fail, or failing an assignment they deserve to fail, which, by the way, if you do the math, it's like 3% of her grade. It's not much. If they can get attention for this, for work they didn't do, like, I'm not surprised that's why the right-wing media is jumping on board, because there's nothing they love more than giving themselves lower standards and then pretending that they are somehow raising the bar because they're better than those lower standards. Like, the solution is not let's reward people who can't do the work. It's let's hold everyone to a higher standard, but they can't do that on the right. Oh, I don't know what else to say here. Let's stop there. I don't even know how long it's been at this point. What questions we got here, Dan? Thank you for your poorly worded, illogical letter. After review, we have lowered your grade to absolute 0. Have a nice day. Now, see, that's the message the grad students should have sent her. That would have been blunt and to the point, and she deserved it. Thank you for being a member for 16 months. Love it. Thank you. That's the way Christian people think. They are right, and if you disagree, you're being deceived by the devil. And the thing is, not all Christians, hashtag, not all Christians. But if that is the way you think, one, you shouldn't be at a public university. But two, like, the whole point of the assignment is you could absolutely say, whoever wrote this paper is wrong. Here's why they're wrong. And by the way, it's not just academia that says this paper is wrong. The Bible says this person is wrong. You could absolutely have said that. She didn't do it because she didn't do the work. Well, wait, is God non-binary in this paper's lore? Why? What did they say? Did they use the pronoun them and their or something? I must have missed that. I mean, I know she referenced him, he, his, whatever. I will show this. Go ahead and get to that question, the next one. I think I missed it, but what is the class name and level? I will show you this from the New York Times. Right here. The assignment in the lifespan development class was to read this article. I don't know, like, in college, people of different ages may take different classes at different times, but Samantha, I believe, is a junior, and this is, like I said, lifespan development class. It's one of those classes you could take on the road to getting a psych major. To be honest, I don't see how espousing her religious views on the subject is engaging the assigned article at all. That is correct. Again, there is a way to work it in. But if that's all you're doing, you could have done the same response to a professor who just said, tell me your thoughts about gender binary or trans people. And you could have written the same paper. which means the paper was not a response to the thing they had to read. Thank you for that donation. How dare you demand she actually follow the requirements for the assignment and that she actually read the paper as assigned? Also, trans rights are human rights because trans people are people. I know, it's shocking. Heresy. I was looking at Hershey for a second. No, I know. It's heresy. Like this idea that we're not asking you to like agree with what liberals say, I guess, but your classmates are here. You can't just say everyone who disagrees with you on this topic is demonic. Like you can just say, I don't agree with them. Here's why. Pretty sure that's not what the Hebrews says. Are you referring to like that Ezer thing? So I checked the Hebrew. It just means helper. It makes no mention of being equal in any of the definitions. Interesting. I did not know that. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for that donation. She's going to have fun in grad school. What grad school is going to take her? I did have that question. Like, she wants to go to med school. As a brown person who has been to med school, she is not going to make it. I promise you. Like, that's not a bad thing. You don't have to go to med school, but like, girl, cut your ties while you can. Find a new major. Because, like, again, a more difficult academic path forward is not in your best interests. Become a redshirt grad student and find a different path. Ma'am, this is a Wendy's, right? Yes, thank you for that donation. Any links to the original article? I think I will post it in the video when I post this later. And that article will have all the links to everything we're talking about here. But again, the funny thing to me is that Turning Point USA posted her entire article as if that was going to help their argument. They posted the instructor's comments in response to her, which they thought helped Samantha. None of it did. I don't understand who's running their social media. Clearly people who are not good at their jobs. So naturally they will become like right-wing media specialists. I like to listen to you while I drive for Uber, and I swear to God, you sound just like John Mulaney. High praise. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for that donation. Have we been going for like 50 minutes? Jesus. Oh my God. All right. Anything else here? All right. I'm going to jump to a different story. Give me 1 minute here. I'm going to close 700 tabs. I know that one, unless it's a trick question. Yay. Good job, me. Okay. I'm going to tell you a story that I don't think you have heard yet. I think everyone heard the last story I talked about. I don't know that you've heard about this one. And there's maybe 3 parts to it. And it's kind of disturbing. But let me briefly go through parts 1 and 2, and then we'll spend some time on part 3. So here's part 1. Last month, a 22-year-old woman with intellectual disabilities, she was kidnapped in Crawford County, Arkansas. Basically, 2 men went to her home. They were wearing ski masks. They abducted this poor woman and they drove her to an empty field. They tied her to a tree. I think they used zip ties on her hands. And guess what? This young woman, she managed to run away from them. She got loose. She got free. And the men chased after her and they caught her and they put her back on the tree. And guess what happened then? She escaped again. She ran away. She heard them mention, like, go get a gun. And she kept running. The bravery of this woman. She kept running. She found some house. She got in there. She managed to call 911. And at that point, law enforcement came to her rescue. And one officer later said, this woman, quote, was in fear for her life and clung tightly to a teddy bear the entirety of me speaking with her during her interview. So, horrifying story, but that woman in question is doing okay. Here's part 2. They caught the people who did this. And it wasn't just the 2 men. It's this whole group of people. And this is where it gets really weird. Because this woman on the left, Tamara Hamby, guess who that is? That would be the 22-year-old woman's mother. And the woman over here, Shannon Childers, that is apparently the in-home nursing assistant who helps care for the 22-year-old woman. And those 2 dudes, they're just randos who this one hired because they were going to do this kidnapping. So what the hell is going on here? Here's what happened. The woman's mother, Tammy, she staged this whole kidnapping. She basically got everyone on board to do it. And what I learned about the 22-year-old woman, who's the Tammy's daughter, is that the daughter was adopted when she was 6 weeks old. Like, she's been part of this family. She's adopted. She's been part of this family her entire life. She has these intellectual disabilities, and her mother decided this is the way we're going to teach this girl a lesson. Now, why did she need to be taught a lesson? Apparently, according to Tammy Hamby, her daughter was apparently talking to strangers online. And someone she was talking to was pretending to be the country music star Luke Bryan. It was not Luke Bryan. And despite pleading with her daughter not to talk to strangers, the girl kept doing it. So the mother thought, I need to scare you into being obedient. So that's when she got in touch with the nursing assistant who helps out at home. The nurse hired those 2 other men, and they staged this kidnapping. And this is what an article said about it. If I could pull this up. Check this out. Arrest documents said the plan was to have someone pretend to be associated with Luke Bryan and communicate with Hamby's daughter to coordinate a meetup. The plan was then to have the person pick Hamby's daughter up, take her to a field up the road, and demand money before tying her to a tree. The warrant says then Hamby was set to show up and rescue her. But apparently one of those dudes reportedly took a wrong turn and ended up in the wrong field, the warrant said. Hamby's daughter was zip-tied and tied to a tree, as I pointed out. I will also tell you that according to a reporter at the River Valley Democrat Gazette, they got a hold of the warrant, and this is what it said. One of those dudes hid in the trunk wearing a ski mask as they drove. The other guy pulled into a field, let the first guy out of the trunk, donned a ski mask, and both men demanded money from the young woman. And when she said she had no money, they pulled her from the car. Like, this is terrifying. This is like ICE level terroristic shit that they're pulling on this poor young woman. And she's going along with it because she's afraid for her life until courageously she thinks she can run away from these people. Like, every adult involved in this story is just the worst person imaginable. And thankfully, like I said, they've been caught, they've been arrested, they now face kidnapping charges. I will tell you something else about these people, which is that Tammy Hamby's husband, who was not part of this plot, he spoke to the media about all this after she was arrested. And check out what he said about all this. Crawford County prosecutor Kevin Holmes pushed back on Jeffrey. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up for a second. Jeffrey Hamby, that's his name. He said he and his wife reached out to local police about the scammer that their daughter was talking to online, but he claims nothing was done. He said Arkansas State Police traced the predator's number to Nigeria, but nothing came of that. The prosecutor pushed back about their inaction, saying law enforcement cannot start making arrests based on suspicious activity. The law enforcement that I deal with are always willing to help, as is our office. And so this idea that we're blaming law enforcement is pretty ridiculous. Just because there's suspicious activity doesn't just allow us to just go out and start rounding up people. Parents have some responsibility. I mean, this is a special needs girl who, if there's issues with the internet, then you just cut her off from the internet, which I think kind of makes sense. But anyway, because Tammy felt that there was nothing that they could do to talk some sense into their child, they decided to stage the kidnapping, which happened on November 17th, just a couple of weeks ago. And her husband, I wanted to share this part with you. Where did it go? Here's the part I wanted to share with you. He is acting like he's the victim in all this. This is what he said to the media. Now the DHS has taken my daughter from me, and my wife is arrested for trying to do the right thing, for trying to save my daughter, who has never known evil, has been sheltered all of her life, and we couldn't talk her into understanding that danger existed. And so we wanted to show her that evil does exist. And now she's in DHS custody. Basically, the government took the child from this family, even though she's 22. And my wife is facing jail time. Jeffrey admitted that the plot was ill-conceived and really poorly executed. How's that for an understatement? Noting that the bruising his daughter got from the zip ties was accidental, and that a practice run of the kidnapping was conducted to try to keep things like that from happening. You guys, they held a practice run of the kidnapping of their daughter. This dude is like, I had nothing to do with it. But you guys, I talked to my wife, and she said they practiced all of this. They had practiced earlier that day with these zip ties to leave them loose so she could slip them off. Instead, in the struggle to get away, she tightened the zip ties and it bruised her wrists. Who would have thought this 22-year-old would have tried to run away and save her own life? Jeffrey ended the interview by imploring that Tammy was never planning to harm their daughter and that she hates that she's being disparaged like this. Why won't anyone think of the poor kidnappers? They never get the respect they deserve. Okay, so what have we learned from parts 1 and 2 so far? It's that these parents who insisted on disciplining their daughter by staging a pretend kidnapping and forever traumatizing her have no business taking care of children since their own moral compass is completely broken. I hope that's clear. I think that's clear. Okay, that's the end of part 2. Why am I talking about this on this channel? Like, what is the connection here? Well, everything I just told you would be pretty messed up already on its own. What makes this story completely ridiculous is that Jeffrey and Tammy Hamby are well known in their community, not for the kidnapping, that just happened, but it's because they have spent the past several years trying to protect children from the scourge of, you guessed it, gay people. All of this began in like 2022. And basically, here's what happened. Tammy Hamby was a member of the Crawford County Quorum Court. And all you need to know is, like, there's 13 people on this government body. And even though, like, the public library system is appropriated a certain amount of money, the Quorum Court has the ability to prevent the library from getting that money. And in late 2022, Jeffrey and Tammy wrote a letter to the library board and the Quorum Court saying, hey, I saw you have a display for Pride books, and not only do we want you to get rid of that display, we want you to remove all those Pride books from the watchful eyes of children. If you don't want to ban the books, we want you to move them to a separate section. And she specifically cited the harm that not doing that would cause. Let me show you this. This is the letter. Look at the date on this. November 10th, 2022. Where did I get this from? This is from a lawsuit that was later filed. But look at this. This is from the Hambys. We are concerned about the agenda that is being pushed by the Van Buren Public Library, aiming education of alternative lifestyles to prepubescent children. I'm going to skip ahead. We do not agree with that lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. Our issue is with the constitutional rights of parents and our religious liberties being infringed upon by this progressive woke ideology normalizing and equating homosexual and transsexual lifestyles with heterosexual family units. And doing this without parental consent or the ability to opt out? Oh my God. They have purchased with taxpayer money several books about alternative lifestyles that are aimed at prepubescent children. Ma'am, they are just called children. You don't have to go further than that. Some of these books are available in board book form, which tells you the age they are targeting. Book titles are included with this letter. Then they make a public display in front of the library with these books. This represents an agenda to indoctrinate our community, but especially our children with this content. So this couple writes this. Oh, what else do they say in this stupid letter? Look right up here. Public libraries should not become a place where children are exposed to radical sexual ideology. And I like this part as well at the top of your screen. Exposing our prepubertal children to colorful picture books equating homosexual and transsexual behavior to and as normal as heterosexual parenting without the consent of the parents subverts our God-given rights as parents and discriminates against us based for our religious beliefs. Oh my God, that was writing that's as good as Samantha Fulnecki. Prepubertal. They're mad about colorful picture books equating homosexual and transsexual behavior. Those are not picture books showing sex positions. It's like picture books saying, hey, look, there are two dads in this household. That's literally all we're talking about here. And then finally here, our parental rights and religious liberties are being subverted by a progressive woke ideology. Yeah, she said it again. Driven by the library director and her employees. Many professionals would still consider this behavior child abuse. Oh, child? Apparently that's a bad thing in this family for the Hambies. And this board-certified family physician, that would be Jeffrey Hamby, in this community for over 25 years is one of them. Oh my God. Okay, so that's the stupid letter this couple wrote to the library years ago. So apparently allowing children to have easy access to books in which two men or two women are shown as married, that is tantamount to child abuse, said the woman who kidnapped and injured her own special needs daughter to teach her a lesson. Now, I will show you one other thing that was in the court documents. Apparently, Jeffrey Hamby, the husband / physician, he delivered a public statement to the quorum court where he did this. Check this out here. It's the highlight. I tried to highlight this. I don't know if it came through, but look at the highlighted bit. Dr. Hamby spoke briefly. Ask yourself, as leaders of our community, is teaching our child that they may be queer or homosexual or a drag queen the best use of our limited tax resources? These people don't read the books because none of these books are like, do you want to be a homosexual? That's not what Elmo is telling anybody. What are they talking about? Like, it's a tiny book. It'll take you 30 seconds to read it. Have you tried? None of these people try. Now, I want to show you one other thing here, which is that there was a news report about this letter and what they were trying to do to defund the library as a result of this. And it's behind a paywall, so I had to figure out a good way to show this to you. But check this out. In this article, this is an interesting point here. The Hambys were supported by the River Valley City Elders, a community organization that touts itself as ambassadors for Christ who stand in the gap for our cities spiritually through prayer, unity, and activism. So basically, while they're writing this letter trying to defund the library, there is a Christian organization that is that has their back here. And I got to show you the website for this Christian organization. Check this out. City elders governing the gates. This is the most whacked out website. River Valley City Elders welcomes you. All right, what do they believe in here? They want to stand in the gap for our cities so that, what do they want to do? As Christ followers, we have joined together to educate, motivate, and activate. They want to build a culture that is attacking the moral foundation. They want to counter the foundation. I don't know what they want anymore. It's a weird website. They meet weekly. There's some weird stuff here. What do they want to do? They want to encourage the drafting of civil laws, which reflect a biblical worldview and Judeo-Christian values and ethics. So they want a theocracy. Got it. They want to identify and encourage godly leaders to run for public office. They want to glorify God through the lordship of his son, Jesus Christ, in the church, civic government, and business. Holy crap, I found a cult. So anyway, that was the letter. And guess what? That letter and the Hamby's advocacy had an effect, because that quorum court, the officials on that quorum court, they pressured the library's administrators to remove LGBTQ children's books from the shelves, put a prominent color label on them, and then create a brand new social section for those books. Like very much a separate but equal section in the library. And it wasn't just books about LGBTQ people either. According to a text message or an email that Tammy Hamby sent that also came out in court documents, check out what she wrote to somebody. I personally asked her to move other books that might be a problem, like books with pictures of girls inserting tampons that she brought to my attention. She agreed that day, then did not move them. Said in a meeting it was oversight. She's mad about a library book that teaches girls how to put in a tampon. Like, that is 100% not a sexual thing. So why are you trying to move it? This lady just has a problem with anything and everything. It's just weird. So, by the way, in case you're wondering which books they didn't like, these came out as well. Oh, I'm sorry. The books included Uncle Bobby's Wedding, which is about a same-sex wedding. There's a book called The Ring Bearer that they wanted to file in a different section that also has gay characters. But anyway, here's the takeaway from all this. The library people, including the library system's director, they had a choice to make here that it's really awkward, because they knew that books should not be banned or segregated. They knew that it was illegal to do that, but they also don't want to lose the library's funding, because that would be bad for the community. They don't want to lose their jobs, because it's their jobs. And so what do you do here? So the library's director was like, how about we compromise? We will create a different section for books that might offend conservative Christians, just to make sure the funding still comes through, because we need the funding. Oh, this is a part I wanted to share with you here. According to a lawsuit that later occurred, look at number 20. The social section also includes books that the former library director thought may challenge right-wing Christian sensibilities. For example, the social section books include a book on world religions, can't have that around, a book about people with disabilities, how dare they, and a book that normalizes blended families, i.e. families in which both parents are divorced and have children from prior relationships. So it's not just books about gay people that they wanted moved away. They didn't want books about disabilities. They didn't want books citing other religions. Like, it's just what makes conservative Christians flip out. Let's move those books. And so this is what the library director suggests. And I think I'm on her side, not because I want the books segregated, but because I kind of sympathize with the fact that she's in a no-win situation here. And she said, fine, how about we segregate the books, but you keep giving us funding and you allow my people to keep their jobs. So I get that. But after they did this, several members of the library's board resigned. And normally it would be the library's director who appoints replacements until an election can be held. But guess what happened this time around? It turned out one of Terry Hamby's friends, his name is Chris Keith, he became the incoming county judge, and he decided he's going to appoint the replacements himself. And so guess who he appointed to the library board of directors? Terry Hamby, our kidnapper. He appoints her to become chairwoman of the Crawford County Library System. And at that point, the library's director is like, I am resigning too. And she later filed a defamation lawsuit. I'm not going to get into all of that, but she said she was forced out as director, even though she had done everything these Christian zealots wanted. So as you might guess, none of this went over well with the literate part of the community. And so some parents in the community, they sued over the separate but equal part of the library, and they were successful. A federal judge soon ordered the library officials to get rid of that separate section and put the kids' books back where they belong. And this is what the judge said at the time, if I could find this here. Here we go. This is what the judge wrote. It is unquestionably true that the First Amendment permits public libraries to restrict minors' access to materials that are not age appropriate. But while those restrictions will inevitably be content-based, they must still be viewpoint neutral. It is one thing to restrict minors' access to sexually explicit material, but a very different thing to restrict minors' access to unpopular opinions. Here, the undisputed evidence shows that the social section was created not only for the former purpose, but also for the latter, which violates the First Amendment. So thank goodness that judge was right. So the thing is, here's where we're at. The library system lost the federal lawsuit, as they should have. Terry Hamby later argued that the library system, which she was now in charge of, should pay the legal bills instead of the county, which technically made them do this. And think about that for a second. A representative of the library board was arguing that the library system should be further punished for doing the illegal thing that she always wanted them to do. Because her only goal this entire time had been to destroy the public library system. And now that she's in charge, she's like doging this shit. She's like, oh, you can take away our money? Yes, why don't you go ahead and do that? According to an article I just saw, do you know how much this library system and the county have had to pay to settle and deal with all these lawsuits? The count is currently over $575,000. That is the tangible damage that one crazy-ass Christian woman has caused this entire community. This is an article from the Arkansas Advocate. Yeah, the legal fees facing Crawford County defendants in both lawsuits now exceed $575,000. Okay, here's another thing. Do you remember what the story was about in the first place? It was about how Tammy Hamby kidnapped her daughter and like traumatized her. Yeah, so that kidnapping happened on November 17th. Well, on November 24th, like a couple weeks ago, she submitted her resignation to the library board. It happened a week after the kidnapping. And everyone's like, Tammy, why are you resigning from the board? You have all the power. And she's like, well, haha, I'm moving. So I guess I got to leave the board. And everyone's like, oh, didn't know you were moving, but okay. And they accept her resignation. And then a few days later, Tammy's in the news. And everyone knows why she's actually leaving. So what began as a story about the grotesque cruelty of two Christian parents who terrorized their own vulnerable special needs daughter turns out to be a much larger story about how conservative Christian extremists just destroy everything they touch. The Hambys built their public identities around the notion that they are moral guardians, right? They pretended to be warriors against the threat of LGBTQ people. And not just actual people, but like fictional characters in children's picture books. And then when they were confronted with an actual parenting challenge, which is a legitimate challenge, which is my kids on the internet and I don't like them talking to strangers, what do I do about it? Fair point. Fair question. What did they do? They resorted to violence and deception and psychological torture. They keep talking about we've got to safeguard innocence, but what are they doing in practice? Like, this isn't a fluke. This is what we see all the time. How many stories have we talked about where the loudest, bigoted voices are the ones hiding the most hypocritical secrets? How many pastors have we seen say we got to protect our kids because gay people are out to get them? And then you find out they're harboring sexual predators in the church, or they are the predators themselves, right? The Hambies waged war on librarians because they were shelving books about LGBTQ families. They called it child abuse. That was their words. Even as they orchestrated a literal kidnapping of their own daughter. They wanted censorship to protect minors, and then they organized the physical restraining of their own daughter. Like, there is Christian hypocrisy, and then there is whatever the hell the Hambies are doing. That's why you can never trust these vocal Christian moms for liberty types whenever they pretend to be moral authorities, because they don't give a shit about kids. All they care about is power. The most dangerous thing in Crawford County, it's not those kids' books, it's this couple. And because of what they did, the entire community has suffered, not just their daughter. So again, let this be a warning against ever trusting aggressive Christian culture warriors who they claim to speak for everybody, but they only ever represent a small sliver of local bigots. Like, there's no amount of Bible quoting or anti-LGBTQ fear-mongering that can cover up for their own cruelty and hypocrisy. I'll stop there for now. What questions we got here? Thanks for that donation. I cannot, as the mom of a neurospicy tiny human, fully express my outrage. I'm nauseous and beside myself. They need some intense therapy, to be polite. Yeah, I got nothing to add to that. I appreciate you chiming in, and I am also outraged. I'm online with strangers right now. And you know what? My name is Luke Bryan, so I got something to sell you. That's the thing. Look, I totally I have a kid who plays Roblox. I know Roblox has had issues with kids talking to people who they shouldn't talk to. But one of the ways you deal with this is you have a conversation about this stuff. You prevent them from talking to people online. You could change the settings if you need to. There are ways to deal with this. And by the way, if you have kids right now, every parent knows this is the discussion you are going to have. I don't know. At no point have I ever thought, you know what I should do? Let me grab some zip ties and let me hire some helpers, and I'm going to scare my kid into doing the right thing. Maybe I went to the wrong church or something. Did they go into the wrong field during the practice kidnapping? I have so many questions about all the logistics for all of this. I don't know. I want to know. Every accusation is a confession for those people. Very true. Thank you for that donation. I saw this episode on Arrested Development. The guy's arms falls off at the end. I did not watch that show, so I don't get the reference, but I'm sure a lot of people do, so thank you. Why so many Christians have problems with tampons and other menstrual-related topics. Thanks for that donation, by the way. I think the answer is they don't like to discuss anything that happens like south of the waist. They're just uncomfortable with all of it, no matter what is going on. And it's not just a purity culture thing. It's just they are functionally unable to have mature discussions about any of this stuff, which is sad because this isn't even about like sex education. This is just basic human nature. Like, you got to talk about it. And by the way, it's not just you talk about it with your daughters either, right? Your son should know what's going on as well. But they're really bad at it because they've trained these people in these conservative churches to just think anything south of the border is something you should never discuss, never talk about. And then one day you will get married and then suddenly you're an expert in everything. Your sex life will be amazing on day one. Whereas the day before was don't talk about it. It's horrible. It's a sin. It's all bad. So if the parents go to prison, who takes care of the 22-year-old daughter? Well, first of all, the dad has not been charged with anything because, as far as I know, the dad did not know this is going to happen. He's just trying to defend the mom after the fact. But I don't know. I heard she has a caretaker. So, Luke Bryan needs to write a song about this. Man, look at how they drag Luke Bryan into this whole story. Unfair to that guy. Remember to like and subscribe. Fight the power. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Thank you. All right, give me a second here. Okay. By the way, I know I've only done 2 stories so far, and we're like 7 hours into all this. But we're gonna do a lot more. These will go by faster, I swear. West Virginia just did something ridiculously stupid, and it's really sad what just happened there. So here's the thing about West Virginia. It's a deeply red conservative state. And despite that, despite the fact that they have some of the worst health crises in the country, despite the fact that babies who are born in West Virginia have some of the lowest vaccination rates in the country, there's something that's really surprising, which is that West Virginia is incredible when it comes to public school vaccinations. So let me repeat that because I know that's a little confusing. This is from an article about it, but in 2021, West Virginia childhood vaccination rate lowest in the country. Babies there are not getting vaccinated. Only 56.6% of kids were getting vaccinated. But when it comes time for kids to go to school, so when they're like 5 or 6 years old, guess what? In West Virginia, they have to be vaccinated to enter public school, and there's no exception to that. This is the key. West Virginia does not allow anyone to say, my religion says no vaccines. They say, we don't care. That's not a rule. The only exemptions they allow are medical related ones. Like I physically cannot get vaccinated. Okay, but everyone else has to. And because of that, West Virginia has the highest rates in the nation when it comes to vaccination rates for school-age children. So that's incredible. Just down here, when children hit the West Virginia school system, according to this expert, we have one of the highest rates of immunizations. And that fact protects all West Virginians of all ages because our school immunization policy is so strong. So I don't think I would have guessed that if you asked me, but like, good for them, right? Like, sometimes red states kind of do the right thing, and everyone else should learn a lesson from that. That is the power of a good public health policy. And until recently, that policy enjoyed support from medical experts and even some right-wing political leaders in the state. In fact, when Republican lawmakers in West Virginia tried to loosen that law in 2024 and say, come on, can we allow some religious exemptions to the vaccine rules? You know what Governor Jim Justice said at the time? He vetoed their bill and he said, no, we like vaccines. Here's what he said at the time. This is a Republican governor of a very red state. Justice added that spikes in measles in surrounding states with less stringent vaccine requirements guided his decision. West Virginia historically has seen very few instances of these diseases, specifically because the vaccination requirements in this state are so strong. Importantly, the vaccines at issue have been required in this state for decades and have kept our communities safe. It's like, oh my God, Jim Justice, on this issue, you are so good at this. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Now, here's where things go south. In 2023, that same Jim Justice signed into law something called the Equal Protection for Religion Act. And it basically said, hey, if you say something is your sincerely held religious belief, you ought to be allowed to get away with it unless the government has a really compelling reason to say no to you. So that's a stupid rule. Federally, there's a version of that. It's called the Religious Freedom, I forgot what the hell it's called, RFRA, RFRA. But here's the thing. Jim Justice signed that state version of that law in 2023. And now a judge in West Virginia has cited that law to get rid of the vaccine requirements. And here's what happened. Basically, earlier this year, the new governor, Patrick Morrisey, he came into office and he passed an executive order. And this is what he said. Like, I, Patrick Morrisey, I direct and order the commissioner for the Bureau for Public Health and the state health officer to establish a process for objections to compulsory school immunization from persons who desire to send their children to a state school or state-regulated childcare center, but object on religious or conscientious grounds to one or more vaccine required by the compulsory immunization law. Basically saying, I'm going to have people figure out how can we make sure people with religious or, belief-related reasons can get out of getting vaccinated. You guys figure it all out. Now, interestingly enough, the state law on the books still said everyone's got to get vaccinated, no exemptions unless it's medical related. And so the West Virginia Board of Education said, hey, let's all just ignore that executive order and we're going to follow the law. And guess what? Everyone's still got to get vaccinated. And what's weird is that at that time, between the governor writing that executive order and the Board of Education saying, we're not going to listen to this, 570 requests for religious exemptions had been filed. And the governor says yes to all of them. And the West Virginia Board of Education says, hey, school districts in the state, do not accept these requests. I don't care who signed them. You say no to them. These kids cannot go to public school. They have not been vaccinated. And again, that's exactly what they should do. You don't want a bunch of unvaccinated kids coming to your school. So that's what happened. The executive order was written, but no one was taking it seriously. And then some mother in the state, these right-wing groups find their plaintiffs. She filed a lawsuit. Her child, she said, was admitted to a public school, but then removed because they had a religious vaccination exemption. And what she said in her lawsuit, I want to show you this. Here we go. This is from an Associated Press article about this. The original lawsuit doesn't explain what specific religion the families follow. It was filed on behalf of parent Miranda Guzman, who identifies as a Christian, and said that altering her child's natural immune system through required vaccinations would demonstrate a lack of faith in God and disobey the Holy Spirit's leading. The suit was later amended to add 2 other parents. Why can't you just argue that God gave us vaccines, so we should all use them? Like, this particular thing, excuse me, we don't want to show God that we lack faith in him, so why would we get vaccinated? Like, have you ever taken Tylenol? Do you get glasses? Have you ever gotten surgery? That's going against God's will. That never bothered you, but apparently protecting your kid and other kids is too much. So that was the lawsuit. And the sad thing is that the judge in this case ate it up. He fully agreed that these people were being burdened. This is from the news outlet West Virginia Watch. In his ruling, Frobel wrote that the family's religious beliefs and practices regarding vaccination have been substantially burdened by the school board's policy not to allow them to attend school. You know who is substantially burdened when unvaccinated kids are allowed to go to school? Everybody else's kids. What the hell is this guy talking about? And then Morrissey was like, yay, I'm right. Today's ruling is a win for every family forced from school over their faith. I will always take a stand for religious liberty and for the children of this state, except the ones who don't want to have diseases. I applaud the court for upholding West Virginia's Equal Protection for Religion Act. So all the right-wing crazies are celebrating the fact that they can now go to school unvaccinated and just cause harm to everybody. It is so deeply disturbing. I do want to share this part with you because I found this interesting. Let me see if I can find this. It's like suddenly gone in the part I wanted to share with you. Well, I can't find it. I'll just tell it to you. One of the reasons the judge said he was okay with allowing religious exemptions is he said, hey, there were only 570 exemptions that the schools did not accept. That represents less than 1% of the statewide student population. So he said, if we say yes to all of them, it would not jeopardize herd immunity. So he's like, you can let some unvaccinated kids in the public schools. It's not going to change everything. It's not going to change health. But you could see the problem here, right? Because if they allow religious exemptions to become a thing, what do you think all these other religious zealot parents are going to do? Because now they know not only can you request a religious exemption, the government will grant it to you and your kid can go to a public school. So, yeah, it's 570 so far, but now you just open the floodgates. That means way more kids are going to go to school unvaccinated, and that means diseases can spread faster in those schools, and they're going to affect kids who are there. Like, it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated anymore because the disease is all around you. So, herd immunity could be jeopardized because of what this judge did. So, I don't know. Congrats, West Virginia. Your kids are in danger now because conservatives like measles and polio more than they like healthy children. For what it's worth, the West Virginia State Board of Education, they said they plan to appeal this decision, but for now, they have suspended their policy rejecting religious exemptions. Now, I will say really quick, because some of you may have seen this in the news, this just came out, I think, midweek. This is the headline. West Virginia again bans religious reasons for school vaccine exemptions. Like, what is going on? And basically, here's what happened. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court of West Virginia issued a stay in that judge's ruling. They basically said, okay, hold on. We want to take a look at this. They said there are appeals in this case happening right now. So until the legal process works itself out, there are no religious exemptions allowed yet. So the West Virginia Board of Education said in a statement, it is reinstating its directive to county boards of education not to accept religious exemptions. This directive will be in effect until the Supreme Court issues further guidance. So, horrible decision from a judge initially, horrible outcome if that's allowed to stand. The West Virginia Supreme Court says, hold on, we're not there yet. Pause. So that's where we're at right now. But it's really sad that West Virginia had a legitimately good public health policy when it came to vaccines, and they're now throwing away one of the only good things their state has ever done with regard to public health policy. Like, this is not just about one lawsuit or one judge. It's not even about some religious exemptions. It is about the deliberate sabotage of one of the smartest things that state has ever done. And, other states could look to West Virginia as evidence, as a beacon of how you ought to implement these policies. And now West Virginia's doing exactly what you would expect West Virginia to do. And so at some point, when measles or polio breaks out in West Virginia, you know exactly who to thank. This judge, the plaintiffs in this lawsuit, the Republicans who have been clamoring for more polio this whole time because they don't understand how science and vaccines work. Like, none of this had to happen. The state was doing fine for decades with this policy. But because a majority of West Virginia voters prefer ignorance over expertise, they no longer have a government willing to defend public health against like irrational religious zealots. So I will leave it at that. It's disturbing. I hope the Supreme Court like keeps this pause going as long as they can. But for now, for now it's good, but it could turn around again real fast. So what questions we have here? Oh, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you for that donation as well. See, this is how we get super viruses. Yes. Just point to the red state that doesn't vaccine people or doesn't pressure kids to get vaccinated, and the parents who don't love their kids enough to get them vaccinated. And yeah, that's how polio becomes a thing again. Germs don't give a damn, nor make an exemption for your religious beliefs. See, I know that, and you know that. Apparently, none of these white evangelicals who are opposed to vaccines seem to understand that, like, Jesus doesn't give them a shield against sicknesses. Doesn't RFK Jr. also reject germ theory? Doesn't RFK Jr. like walk barefoot in bathrooms and on planes and stuff? I feel like that guy loves his germs. So yeah, I guess he does reject germ theory because everything he does seems to be against what good health advice would be when he's not sexting with a reporter who's profiling him. So this judge has a degree in infectious diseases now? Nope. This judge is like, well, your religion said you want to do this thing that's bad for everyone. I guess you win. I don't know how the law works, but that shouldn't be a normal thing. Can you imagine being a judge who's like, I could do the right thing, but I could also allow polio to come back. What thing should I do? Well, the law tells me I should allow polio to win. So I guess I have no agency now. Like, at that point, why are you a judge? What's the point of whatever your career path was? All right, I'm jumping to a different story. I'll move quickly. I know I'm going long. I figured that, but I don't know why that's the tallest. Grandfather is usually pretty short. Okay. I think you will actually like the story. The one story I have that's not here to depress you. Let me show you what they're doing at the Sanger Theater in Pensacola, Florida on December 23rd. They have a drag queen Christmas. Look at that. It sounds like a great time. It's hosted by Nina West. It's the longest running drag tour in America. And what are they doing? Fans can expect a fabulous remix of classic Christmas hits, dazzling themed variety performances, and interactive moments to share your Christmas cheer for the most magical time of the year. Now, interestingly enough, as you can see right here, it is an adults-only show. So I just want to point that out. It'll be relevant in a second. But this is happening in this theater in Pensacola, Florida, a couple days before Christmas. And since they announced that, conservatives and Christians and conservative Christians are up in arms about how a show like this is allowed to go on, because didn't you people know that Christians own the entire month of December? And at this point, even the Attorney General of Florida is getting involved. So here's how ridiculous this is. Conservative Christians in that state have been trying to shut down this entire show since it was first announced in early October. And I'll show you this in a second as soon as this comes back here. Basically, here we go. The argument from Christians who are trying to shut this show down is that this is technically a theater that the local government has a contract with. And this is the argument they were using. They're like, this isn't about the First Amendment. They said, the city has a contract with the managing company, and that clause in their contract clearly gives the city the authority to review and cancel this type of event. So we are calling on them to honor that contract, said Todd Leonard, president of Micah 6-8 Ministries of Pensacola, Inc. There was no vetting on the front end of this. In fact, if you go back to the last 3 to 4 years of Christmas productions in November and December, they have all been wholesome events for the city. And then all of a sudden, this appears. So we believe it's been intentional. Like, these people are the worst. Yeah, it was almost certainly intentional. That is how productions like this work. But let me show you, like, here's the schedule for the Sanger Theater. I'm just pulling this up here. Look at what they have going on. They have a very electric Christmas show on December 4th. A chocolate-covered Christmas carol. That's like a soul music-themed show. They have the Pensacola Children's Chorus presenting Christmas on the Coast. Like the Nutcracker from Ballet Pensacola. They're doing so many shows that are Christmassy. And then on the 23rd, they have a drag queen Christmas. Like, this theater is doing so many family-friendly, holiday, Christmas-themed shows. And they have one night where they have a drag queen Christmas and people are going apeshit. Like, there is nothing for Christians to complain about here. Because guess what? The show may be 18 or older. You have to be 18 to buy tickets. But guess what? There's no nudity. There's no obscenity. There might be some edgy jokes or something, but the goal is to have some fun. That's it. That's why a show like this is successful. And a theater is successful when they hold a variety of events that will bring in different audiences. Like, that's all that seems to be happening here. Even if none of that were true, though, and the Christian claim had any merit, think about what would happen if the city said, we're not allowing you to host this drag queen show. Well, they would face a legitimate First Amendment lawsuit, right? And like, think about the financial component too. This is interesting. Because if the argument is the city shouldn't be sponsoring the show because it's taxpayer money being used, guess what one guy did in the community? A guy named Carson Wilbur, he said, well, then I'm going to launch a GoFundMe campaign, because if you do the math here, the city's contract with the management company that runs this theater is about $150,000 a year. And in return for that money the city pays, that management company puts together the program of what's happening in the theater. And they put on about 110 shows a year. And that comes out to about $1,300 to $1,400 per show. So this GoFundMe over here, the goal was, let's raise $1,300 or $1,400. We'll give it to the city. So guess what? It's no longer a tax burden. And guess what? They've already raised nearly $3,000. So again, if the problem is you're wasting taxpayer dollars, that ain't the case. So if all of this was just a back and forth between some conservative Christian zealots who have nothing better to do and people who appreciate a good drag performance, maybe no one would care. But what happened since then is that the Attorney General of Florida has decided to jump into the mix. His name is James Uthmeyer. Like, one of his predecessors was Pam Bondi, who's now Donald Trump's Attorney General. But this is what he wrote to the Pensacola City Council on November 7th. He basically told them to cancel this show. Look at what he says here. What's more, it will be playing... Whoa, this is a weird... Let me try that again. It will be playing in the middle of downtown at the same time as Pensacola's family-friendly Winterfest. So while Pensacola children are taking pictures with Santa, men dressed as garish women in demonic costumes will be engaged in obscene behavior mere feet away. Think about what this guy just said. Uthmeyer is saying, okay, it's an adults only show, but outside on the street, there may be kids, and like they're kind of close, even though there's a giant wall here and the kids cannot see what's happening in the show. But like proximity wise, they're really close. That's seriously the argument he's going with. What else did Uthmeyer say here? As seen by the public outrage at recent city council meetings and online, so he's referring to one Christian troll and other Christian trolls online, Pensacola residents categorically reject this show's content as a threat to the moral fabric and general welfare of the community. And given this obscene event's proximity to Pensacola's children enjoying Winterfest, the show poses pronounced threats to the health, safety, and welfare of children. So there is no threat of a meaningful First Amendment challenge to the show's cancellation. What the hell is he talking about? A couple people complained about it. They are Christian zealots who get off on complaining about stuff like this. And he's saying, see, no one likes it. You know how you can measure this? Like, if no one likes it, how many tickets are being sold here? Because I imagine this thing's going to be pretty sold out. Like, if no one was buying tickets, what are they going to do? That would be a much clearer indication that no one wants this. But if tickets are selling, that kind of disproves that entire point. Uthmeyer also said this. He said, I want to go back over here. Permitting a drag show at a city-owned theater that openly disparages Christian beliefs is not only an affront to your Christian residents, but it may subject the city to further legal scrutiny. Such city-sanctioned religious mockery may amount to religious discrimination. It would likewise constitute a public nuisance. And were any of these deranged performers to expose themselves to the kids innocently enjoying Christmas festivities near the Sanger Theater, the city could share in liability resulting from charges of obscenity or lewd or lascivious exhibition. Oh my God, this guy is now just making up hypotheticals of like, well, what if one of your performers goes out and does something bad outside the theater? You do not want to play this game because you will never believe what some Christian pastors do when they're not in church. Who cares what these people do off the clock? That has nothing to do with the city. And also this insinuation that, you know, these people who dress in drag, they may want to just do something inappropriate with children is deeply offensive. There was another thing he mentioned that made me laugh, but I'll show you one last thing right here. Failure to stop this sacrilege and misuse of public funds raises serious concerns about the city's stewardship of public property. Do the right thing. There is one other thing he said that was genuinely funny. Oh my God, here you go. I forgot to highlight this, but I have to show you this because it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Look at this right at the top here. A previous production featured a male performer boasting the stage name Trinity the Tuck Taylor, a not so subtle jab at the fundamental doctrine of Christianity. I am not familiar with Trinity Taylor, but I did look Trinity up, and guess where the name Trinity comes from? It's not a mocking reference to the Holy Trinity. It is a reference to Carrie Ann Moss's character in The Matrix. That's where the name Trinity comes from. Uthmeyer didn't know that. He didn't research that. He's just like, oh, I see the name. That must be blasphemy because he doesn't know how to do stuff. I don't know what it is about Florida attorneys general that make them unable to do the most basic research, but they're very bad at their jobs. So anyway, where do we go from here? I will give credit to the Pensacola City Council, I should say, because it seems like they got this letter from the Attorney General and they gave it all the respect it deserves, which is to say, they gave it no respect. This is so funny to me. With all due respect to the Attorney General's office, this was an unsolicited opinion, Councilman Charles Baer said. We did not ask for a legal opinion from this person. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a personal opinion written on government letterhead wasting taxpayer dollars. The city council's like, who the hell's this guy? Who cares? Another councilman, Casey Jones. It seems to be not a legal opinion and more of a personal opinion. It doesn't seem like there are any pertinent case files mentioned in the letter. And then the vice president of the Pensacola City Council. I've also looked at this, I guess with my attorney hat on. I think there was a passing reference to the First Amendment in this letter, which strikes me as a less than thorough vetting of this incident. But the city did call his bluff. And I guess the city asked the attorney general, so if we cancel this show and we get sued over this, is the state going to cover our legal expenses? And then he didn't respond to them. And then a local news channel asked him about that. WEAR News asked the attorney general Friday and Monday if they would cover legal fees related to the show's cancellation and have not gotten a response. Because of course they're not going to cover the cost, because of course this would be a First Amendment violation. Everyone knows that except apparently the guy who later replaced Pam Bondi. So, I mean, this is how Republican attorneys work these days. It's never about the law. It's never about freedom of speech if it's speech they don't like, because they're all hypocrites. Like, this says more about the insecurity of Florida's conservatives than it does about drag performers performing like Christmas songs. And there is nothing illegal or inappropriate or even weird about an adults only show like this, but that's not going to stop Republicans from automatically treating it like it's a threat to kids, because they always equate this sort of stuff as a threat to kids. Meanwhile, they're kidnapping their own kids. No one seems to care. Republicans are these are the same Florida Republicans who ignore climate change and gun safety. You think they care about kids? No. Anyway, no group of Christians should have the power to dictate what kind of art is allowable in public spaces. And if you think something as tame as a Christmas drag show is obscene or illegal, like, they're not going to stop there if they can win here. So, I mean, the most obscene thing about this entire story is the letter that Uthmeyer wrote, and Florida deserves so much better than that guy. All right, I will stop there for that story. What questions we got here? Bigotry is not a reason to cancel the event. Like, absolutely. Legally, it's not a reason. You can't get away with it. Kids have x-ray vision now. Yeah, they can see through walls and they know exactly what's going on, which, by the way, is going to be a drag queen singing like Deck the Halls. Christian moral fabric is what they made the emperor's new clothes from. Oh, I can't see it. Yeah. Love it. Are we angry about the color of Starbucks cups this year? I can't keep up. You know, I haven't heard that particular form of outrage, maybe because everyone's focusing on that Oklahoma girl who cannot write essays. But we got a few weeks before Christmas. Give it time. I'm sure Josh Feuerstein or whoever will be mad at Starbucks cups soon enough. Deck the halls, literally, in gay apparel. There you go. Right on. At this point, long is the new normal. Wait, what are we talking about? I don't know anymore. Oh, are we talking about me talking about stories? Yes, we are. I'm sorry. I lose track of time. Don't worry, I only have 7 more stories. Whoops, give me 1 second here. I'll come back to that. Okay, I got an update for you on what's happening in Texas regarding their law to put the 10 Commandments in every classroom in every school district across the state. And this is a big update. And I know I've done a couple of videos about this already, but this is a big one. I'm going to try to give you a recap so you don't have to watch all those other videos. But here's what's going on, okay? Earlier this year, Texas passed a bill to post the 10 Commandments in public schools. It was King James Version only. The law included a provision that said if any of your schools get sued over this, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, he's going to defend your district for free, which is a weird way of saying taxpayers are going to be on the hook in case your school district does something illegal, which it is. But after that law was passed, a lawsuit was filed. Specifically, a dozen families from like 11 different school districts, they were represented by like the biggest church-state separation groups in the country. Americans United for Separation of Church and State, the ACLU of Texas, the ACLU National, the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And what these groups said is that if you allow these posters to go up in school, well, our families, our religious beliefs are going to be violated. We don't want our kids getting indoctrinated in this stuff. And this is religious indoctrination that we feel is unfair to our families. And they filed this lawsuit saying, hey, judge, we need you to weigh in on this because the school year is going to start very soon. And in August, a federal judge said, you make a good point. I am not ready to issue my ruling yet, but for now, I'm going to issue a preliminary injunction, basically saying in your 11 school districts, they are not allowed to put up the 10 Commandments, at least until I give further, I issue a further ruling on this. So good news, but it only applied to 11 school districts. Some of them are pretty big, but it's just 11. Texas has like over 1,000 school districts. So, okay. Now, an interesting thing happened after that decision came down, which is that the church-state separation side, they sent a letter to every school district in the state saying, hey, listen, we know that Texas lawmakers said you got to put up the 10 Commandments in your schools, but we have just sued over that, and a judge just sided with us. So we're warning you, don't do it, or we'll come after you too. And after they sent that letter, Ken Paxton sent a letter to the school district saying, I'm the Attorney General, and I'm going to be your governor soon, or whatever he's going for at this point. Senator? He's going for senator at this point. But he said, this is the law, and if you don't put up the 10 Commandments, I'm going to sue you. So if you're a school district, what the hell do you do at this point? Like, the right thing to do is just follow the law, which says you can't do it. But here's the Attorney General breathing down your neck, which is something Ken Paxton apparently loves to do, according to all the scandals about him. Anyway, so school starts. And within a couple of months or so, the church-state separation side filed another lawsuit. Specifically, it's like the same lawsuit, but they tweaked it. And they went back to the judge and said, hey, judge, we got a handful of new families here who want to jump in on this. And now there are 14 more school districts that have put up the 10 Commandments, and we need you to issue an injunction to make them take them down because they're not supposed to be doing that. Remember, you said they shouldn't do it. And the judge said, yeah, you do have a point. So he told those 14 other school districts, you got to take down the 10 Commandments posters. I haven't issued my ruling yet, but you can't do it in the meantime. So that's where we were at. It's like 25 different school districts cannot put up the 10 Commandments, but everyone else is like stuck in limbo between, do we listen to the smart people who know how the law works, or do we listen to Republicans? So in the couple of months since all that has happened, Republican lawmakers in Texas have started doing anything in their power to force school districts to do the illegal thing. Like, there's a state senator, Mays Middleton. He donated 10 Commandments posters to like a major school district in Galveston. And the law says if someone donates the posters, you got to put them up. So he's basically, this state senator is forcing these schools to put up a Christian propaganda poster, which is going to get them sued. Like, how irresponsible of a lawmaker do you have to be to like bait your local public school system so that they get punished for it? Like, how shitty of a person do you have to be to do that? But you understand the dilemma here. Like, these church state separation groups, they're winning every legal challenge they file, but it's like playing whack-a-mole. You got to find the districts that are doing it. You got to find families willing to go on the record and say, we don't want this to happen. Meanwhile, Texas Republicans are like, come on, do it anyway. We dare you to do it. So that brings us to what happened this week, because this is a big deal. Here's the headline from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Texas families file new class action lawsuit to stop public school districts throughout Texas from displaying the Ten Commandments. And basically, what this means is they're now going back to the judge and saying, listen, we are tired of coming to you every single time there's another school district doing this. And we know you are still working on your decision here. And by the way, this has already been appealed. It's going to work its way up to the appellate court. And the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is already scheduled to hear this issue in like mid-January. But these church state separation groups are going to the judge and saying, listen, we just want you to put a blanket pause on every school district in Texas. Tell them they can't put up the Ten Commandments thing until the other courts weigh in on this, because we're tired of coming to you every single time Ken Paxton makes them disobey your orders. So that's the request. They also pointed out in their lawsuit that I will show you here. This is what FFRF said. Even though 2 federal judges in Texas have ruled that Senate Bill 10 is unconstitutional, school districts across the state continue to display the Ten Commandments. With more than 1,000 school districts in Texas, a class action lawsuit is the most effective way to protect the religious freedom of all Texas public school children and their families. Was there one other thing I wanted to show you here? Maybe not. They also pointed out in the actual lawsuit here, this is interesting. Check this out. Look at number 236. The plaintiff class is so numerous that that joinder of all members is impractical and includes millions of parents and their minor children who are subjected to these unconstitutional displays. Like, don't make us ask 5.5 million students and their parents to join us on these lawsuits. As of the date of this filing, Restore American Schools reports that over 4,200 schools in Texas have complied with that Ten Commandments bill, and an estimated 180,000 classrooms and a bunch more students have seen these posters. So they're saying, come on, judge, you got to put a stop to this because these people are walking all over you. And they also pointed out, and this was an interesting thing, this is number 250, if plaintiffs are compelled to pursue relief in multiple counties, these are the church state separations people. If we're compelled to pursue relief in multiple counties or even federal districts across Texas, the same core facts and legal theories could yield divergent outcomes on different timelines, resulting in both confusion among defendants and a needlessly increased risk that members of the plaintiff class will suffer violations of their constitutional rights. So yeah, that's a good reason for a judge to step in and say no one should be allowed to do this. For now, all these legal fights just show you how this law was never about education or morality or even tradition. It was just to test how far politicians could force Christianity into public institutions. Let's see when the courts step in to stop us. Because in Texas, they're not stopping everybody. That's what this is all about. And instead of backing down, though, in the face of all these federal rulings against them, what have Texas's top Republicans done? They just are encouraging all these schools to do the thing that's blatantly illegal. Like, I hate that civil rights groups have to waste their time and money and their expertise filing all these legal papers, trying to force the state to just do what the Constitution says. It's not that complicated. This is a settled issue. It has been for decades. But when your opponents are religious zealots, everyone else has to be like a full-time watchdog. And for what? What is the benefit of the 10 Commandments in the classroom? Nothing. No one is safer because they're up on the walls. There's no school shooting has been averted because thou shalt not kill is hidden somewhere in that list. But this is the hill Republicans want to die on because they don't actually want to do anything to make your lives better. I don't know what the Fifth Circuit's going to do next month when they hear this case. I'm genuinely worried because that's a very conservative court. But the whole long game of all these 10 Commandments bills was to get this case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court so they could just say, the 10 Commandments is U.S. tradition, so we're allowing it. And that's bullshit, but that's totally what they want to see happen. And we're at another step in that process. Until that happens, though, courts should do their jobs and put a stop to this, and public school districts should not play along with what Republicans tell them to do. All right, I will stop there for now. What questions we got here? Can the kids rip them down and claim they're offended by it? I am guessing no. I'm guessing the kids will get in trouble for destroying school property at that point. He can be disbarred for that, can't he? You mean Ken Paxton for telling people to do the illegal thing? Ken Paxton has done way worse stuff, and he's like Donald Trump. He avoids any responsibility because the people who would hold him accountable are conservative judges or Republican lawmakers. And those people have no backbone and no principles and no ethics. So no. Could he be disbarred for that? I mean, in a world that works, sure, but not in Texas. Remember, Hemant, the GOP goal is to destroy education. They don't care about winning, just smashing. That is correct. I agree. They want to destroy public education. That's kind of the theme of a lot of our stories. This is settled law. So is Roe. I know. And the right-wing Supreme Court will just magically overthrow it. They'll use whatever justification they want to use. That's where this is going because people are dumb enough to vote for these people who then appoint these Republican justices, rather. So, hey, bro, I binged your Genesis videos and it helped me get through it. Ready for Exodus next. I subbed, though. Great content. Thank you. Thanks for watching those videos. I was proud of that whole series. All right. I got a couple more for you here. I'm going to try to rip through them fast. All right. Okay, I want to show you this pavilion. This is in a park in North Glen, Colorado, which is just outside Denver. Looks really nice. It's the sort of place you could take your family, go for a walk. And this is all at E.B. Raines Jr. Memorial Park. It's a 28-acre area with multiple sports fields, pavilions, a skate park, a lake. I love those sort of places. I go there in my community all the time. But basically, there's a lawsuit that has been filed against the city of North Glen, which runs that facility, by a handful of Christian pastors. And they say in their lawsuit that they have spent years handing out lunches to the homeless and holding prayer sessions for years at that park. And now the city tells them they can't do it. So they're filing a lawsuit. And let me go back a little bit. Those pavilions, including the one in this picture I just showed you, these were pretty much open to the public for anybody who wanted to use them, unless they were reserved in advance. And since mid-2020, the pastors have been meeting twice a week. They do Bible studies, prayers, they hand out meals, and they say in their lawsuit that feeding, serving, and ministering to the local community, including the homeless community, is a religious exercise central to their faith. And they say every time they do these lunch giveaways, they get about 20 to 40 people who stop by. Now, in mid-2024, last year, city officials were wondering if those gatherings could continue because it appeared they were causing more problems than they were solving. And the lawsuit says the officials were worried about the park becoming a magnet for the homeless, especially due to safety concerns. Because apparently the city once said that there was an assault involving a child by a homeless individual. But the pastors say, hey, don't blame us for that. That did not occur on a day that we were there. So don't blame us for that. Now, the city apparently told the pastors, why don't you use a different public building to do these giveaways? We will help you out. We will give you access to that building if you want it. But they said no, because the pastor said we won't be allowed to use the facility's kitchen or the electricity, which is strange because in one of those pavilions, you don't have a kitchen or electricity. So I don't know why they were complaining about that. But it very much seemed like the pastors did not want to leave. And then, coincidentally or not, last year, was it last year? Might have been this year. I can't remember. No, June of 2025, this year. Here's what the city of North Glen did. They passed this resolution here, CR 54, Public Facilities Standard Amendment. Basically, they wanted to amend the way people could use public facilities. And the relevant part of this thing is right here. I tried to highlight it. The proposed amendments would prohibit any group from reserving or dropping in to utilize a pavilion or a park on a recurrent basis. Like if you don't have it reserved, you don't get to just come here week after week. We're not allowing that anymore. And that was it. It's a pretty quick amendment that they wanted to pass. It also said we're talking about groups of 5 or more people, and you just can't use the pavilion all the time unless you have permission from us. And the lawsuit said that policy was written to block us specifically, but they said it's also going to affect other groups as well. This is what they said in their lawsuit. Check this out. Number 65. Under the plain language of CR 54, the rule would criminalize a family of 5 or more meeting weekly for a picnic, a running club gathering every Saturday, or 5 workers sharing lunch at a pavilion every Thursday. And the answer is like, yeah, I guess it would. But honestly, if you're a family, you can go to a different part of the park. If you're a running crowd that likes to run around the lake and then chill out at one of the pavilions, you can chill out elsewhere. I mean, yes, the issue here is this would put a stop to other forms of gatherings as well. But you know what? If the city said you guys can meet, but the Christians cannot, then you might have a lawsuit. But otherwise, what are they complaining about? Like, yeah, I mean, the city would have to apply this rule equally. So who the hell cares? I don't know what they're mad about. The bottom line here is that amendment that may have been passed to stop the church pastors from having their gatherings, but it would be illegal if they were only targeting the churches. But it doesn't. The rule applies to everybody. So I don't know what the big deal is there. So it looked like there was nothing the pastors could do. But then they attempted to point out in their lawsuit how this lawsuit was directly targeting them. And this is how they did it. Look at this. Number 72 right here. Officers would come to these pastors and they reportedly stated they did not know how to code it or how to cite this thing. Meaning these officers went to the pastors and said, you're not supposed to be here. I should write up a citation for you. Shit, I don't know what rule I'm supposed to cite. Which again, that doesn't mean the law it's not like the law is against you. That just means it's a new rule and the cops are getting used to it. I don't know why they're complaining about that. One of the pastors was written up, he said, just for being on the park on his own, which I don't really understand. This is what that guy complained about. This is number 79. Upon information and belief, prior to being cited, officers told the men that they only wanted to give them a warning, but after speaking back and forth with command over the phone, the officers were instructed to cite the individuals from the churches. And again, I don't know what the problem is with that. If they were doing something that violates the rules, that's what they should be punished for. This is not that complicated. Okay, here's another thing. The pastors also said in their lawsuit, guess what? There are other large groups that meet here, including a senior citizens fitness group and an adult daycare service. And they didn't provide any details, so it's hard to see if those comparisons are appropriate. But here's the thing. If other groups are allowed to stay there without reserving that space, then you got a point. But there's no evidence that's happening yet. So ultimately, the pastors said that this is all about selective enforcement. Let me show you this last thing here, number 87. The selective enforcement against the religious ministry, while numerous other groups continue to use the park freely, demonstrates that the city's actions are directed at religious exercise itself. So that's why these pastors are suing the city and why they're super mad. But the Denver Post, they had an article about this whole situation not that long ago. And I found it really interesting. Church leaders allege homeless animus, in Denver suburbs law halting homeless lunches and prayer circles in park. But look at this. If you go down in this article, the Denver Post said, you know what wasn't mentioned in the lawsuit? Is a half dozen troubling incidents the city contends have occurred at the park over the last few years. They include a woman wounded in a stabbing, an unregistered sex offender slipping a 7-year-old child alcohol in a bathroom, a man harassing a child, and a North Glen police officer getting hit over the head with a glass bottle. And according to a memo prepared for a special council meeting this week, the alleged perpetrator in each incident was an attendee of the church gatherings in the park, which until recently had been held twice weekly. So apparently, there was a safety issue, and that's why these pastors were in trouble. And that's the thing. And that's exactly what the city has been saying about all this too. The June measure, according to the city manager, had nothing to do with religion and everything to do with keeping our park spaces and park amenities safe and open to general public use, and to ensure that no single part of any park impacts or excludes individual members of the public from enjoying the amenities. So the city is like, we're not going after the pastors. We just want to keep everything safe. So stop whining about it. I want to show you just one other thing, I believe, here. The city held a special session to talk about, is this law working? What's going on? And they showed this slide. They said, look at the very bottom. In the city of North Glen, we used to be ranked 17th when it came in the state of Colorado when it came to homelessness. Like, we were ranked really high in 2023 when it came to homeless people causing a disturbance. But guess what? Today, our city is ranked 32nd, and that's good. You want to be ranked lower there. However, look at that park specifically, E.B. Raines Jr. Memorial Park. In 2023, homelessness calls were the 12th most common type of call we got, and now we're number 10. Now it's the 10th most reason. So their point being, calls to police about people experiencing homelessness have gone down citywide, but they've gone up in the park, which is the city saying, we need to do something because it's creating a disturbance in the park. And that's their thing. And the city also pointed out in all of this that they have been doing as much as they can to actually deal with the unhoused crisis. And specifically, the city said, we do want to help people who are homeless. We have 6 employees who specifically handle crisis response. We have 3 outreach days around the park each week. We have walk-in resource hours for case management where we can help unhoused people get the resources they need. And that, by the way, includes directing them to places, including churches, where they can get some help. They also have grants available to help anyone struggling with drug or alcohol abuse. So basically, the church is making it sound like the city is doing nothing for the unhoused people in their community. But the city's like, we're trying to do everything we can given the resources we have, but you are not helping. And that is their concern. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we could say about housing crisis and how cities deal with the homeless. I'm sure there's plenty to criticize the city about, but I'm just sharing with you, this is what the city is saying. We're not targeting you. We just want to keep this place safe. So for now, here's where the city is at. They are not making any revisions to their new rule. They are going to take some more time to decide if there do need to be changes to that rule. And it's also possible that this lawsuit filed by pastors could force them to make changes. But for now, I think this lawsuit seems to show how these pastors really want special treatment. Like they're not being persecuted, they're being told to follow the same rules as everyone else, while keeping in mind that this is a public park that everyone has access to. It's not a church that you guys can use as a private gathering spot. And their insistence that any limit on what they do is an attack on Christianity, that is a tactic we have seen before. Like religious liberty for some conservative Christians is always about their right to ignore neutral rules and evade responsibility and blame everyone else for whatever it is they want to do. Like the city introduced a policy that is neutral, and these guys, these pastors, are crying foul because they think neutrality is oppression. So I just want to make myself clear here. The city is not cracking down on religious charity. They are responding to documented violence, behavioral issues, and rising public safety concerns that can be directly traced to what these pastors are doing. And they offered alternatives. The pastors said no. I don't know what else the city is supposed to do in this situation. Like, they can't ignore harm just because the people causing it invoke the name of Jesus. Um, and I don't really get why the pastors don't want to accept any of these alternatives either. Because if helping the homeless is their priority, why not work with the city staffers who specialize in that? Instead, they're holding events that lead to more disruption and don't fix any of these problems in the long term. I think it looks like these pastors are more concerned with optics than actually helping this crisis. So I think North Glen is right to push back against these pastors. I don't think it's Christian persecution to hold pastors accountable for what they do in public spaces. And if anything, this whole thing shows how good intentions can rapidly cover up for serious negligence. But religion should not be an excuse for city leaders to avoid keeping their community safe. All right, I will stop there for this story. What questions we got here? Strange question. Does that go against the right to freedom of assembly? I think the city can put limitations on like how public spaces can be used as long as it's across the board and it's not targeting any one group of people, which is what this policy looks like. For the same, like there can be legitimate across the board rules. That is not an infringement of anyone's rights. Not a lawyer, but I think that's generally how it goes. I'll be honest, I'm super conflicted on how to feel about this story. I was too when I saw the headline because I'm like, if these pastors want to help people and give out food, I want to be on their side. And then the more I dug into it, it's like these pastors are making the situation worse. And if they're making it worse, they're actually making it harder for homeless people to get the help they need. All right, I got one last one for you in just a second, and then we'll be done tonight. All right. I've spent some time talking about how there was a push to create a taxpayer funded religious charter school in Oklahoma. And in case you forgot, that was passed by like the Oklahoma Charter School Board. They said yes to a Catholic school that would receive taxpayer dollars. And they got sued over that. The Attorney General of Oklahoma sued them over it. And the Oklahoma Supreme Court said you absolutely cannot use taxpayer dollars to open up a religious school, and they shot that down. They sued, they took it to they appealed. It went all the way up to the US Supreme Court, and Amy Coney Barrett said, I kind of know people who are involved in this case, so I'm going to recuse myself. And the rest of the court was deadlocked 4-4. And so for now, taxpayer money cannot be used to open up a religious charter school. Now, I think last week I talked about how in Oklahoma, once again, there was a Jewish group that was trying to open up a religious charter school. And because they want to try again, they want another case to get back up to the Supreme Court. And maybe this time, Amy Coney Barrett will not have to recuse herself. But I want to draw your attention to something that is happening right now in Tennessee, which is that there is a proposed Christian charter school in Tennessee, and they are suing the Knox County Board of Education for not giving them public money and allowing them to become a public religious charter school, even though that's a totally illegal thing. So, according to the lawsuit, which was filed like on November 30th, very recently, there is a group called the Wilberforce Academy of Knoxville. And William Wilberforce was like a British abolitionist who fought against slavery hundreds of years ago, named after him. Christians loved this guy. But the Wilberforce Academy said they wanted to launch a charter school for kids in grades kindergarten through 8th grade. And their plan is for this school to open in the fall of 2027. And they made clear to officials that their main goal is not to educate children in any meaningful way, but they want to indoctrinate kids. Let me show you this from a lawsuit they later filed. I don't know if you could see this. I hope you can over here. Christ serves as the cornerstone of Wilberforce Academy's mission, guiding the formation of students who are academically prepared, spiritually grounded, and equipped to lead lives of purpose. Wilberforce exists so that students can come to a saving faith in Jesus Christ, grow in a personal relationship with him, and be equipped to make him known wherever God leads them. Okay, so no math, no science. We're not going to teach kids how to read. Like, the main goal of this school is to make sure they are converted to Christianity, because their religious base is solid if they decide when they're 6 years old that they are born again. So this is the school. And they say their charter affirms the truth of the Apostles' Creed and the inerrancy and infallibility of the Holy Bible. And this is the funniest / saddest part of this entire thing. They also say this in their lawsuit right here. Wilberforce Academy believes that explicit Christian instruction and practice are critical to a good education, and that a purely secular education is necessarily an inferior one. But and I'm going to stop there for now. It's like just trashing every public school that exists, basically. So this is the school. This is what they want to launch. And they say in the lawsuit that all teachers at this school would have to share their fundamentalist beliefs. So no Jews, no atheists, no Muslims, no gay people, etc., would be hired on staff. Now, the reason they're filing this lawsuit is that they say Tennessee law prevents us from getting taxpayer dollars to open up our doors. Because according to the law, let me show you this. This is part of Tennessee law right here, Tennessee code. But look at this. A public charter school shall, at a minimum, operate as a public, non-sectarian, non-religious public school. Yeah, that's how charter schools work. They should be public. They should not be religious at all. And the law also has this section in it right over here, which says the group that is sponsoring a charter school, the law has to make sure they do not promote the agenda of any religious denomination or religiously affiliated entity. So not only is the school supposed to be sectarian, the organization that's sponsoring the school has to be secular in nature as well, because the whole point of this is that it's going to be a public school. And so all of that makes perfect sense. Taxpayer dollars should not be used to advance religion or atheism, for what it's worth. That's in the Constitution. Courts have repeatedly affirmed this. And even in recent years, when the US Supreme Court has chipped away at separation of church and state, all of that has still held true. But the lawsuit says that when the people behind Wilberforce Academy filed the paperwork to launch their place, check this out. They wanted to file the paperwork to make this happen. But look at this. Number 44. That letter, which must be submitted on the state's form, makes clear that Wilberforce cannot and will not be allowed to open or apply to open a charter school. So Wilberforce's letter had to admit that it does not meet the requirements because it does promote the agenda of any religious denomination or religiously affiliated entity. This school is complaining because they're like, we had to fill out paperwork so we could apply to become a charter school, but like the paperwork says we're not allowed to apply. Yeah, because you don't fit the rules. This is not persecution here. The reason they're suing, they're saying, is we need the court to step in and say Tennessee law is illegal. You cannot restrict charter schools to only non-religious, non-sectarian schools. And the lawsuit says Wilberforce Academy is able and ready to apply for charter status as soon as a court orders the Knox County Public Schools to stop discriminating against religious schools and their sponsors. Like, there is no discrimination happening here. It's ridiculous. There is good reason for public dollars to support public education. And by the way, public education is not pro-atheist education, no matter what God's Not Dead tells you, right? And the academy, this Wilberforce Academy, they point out that, you guys, if we file to become a charter school right now, we're going to be in so much trouble because of the law. Look at number 47 here. Wilberforce Academy's right to operate and apply to operate a religious charter school cannot be secure until it wins judicial relief. National secularist groups like the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, and the ACLU are committed to bringing legal challenges to any religious charter school that gets approved or opens its doors. Without judicial confirmation of its rights, no religious charter school can safely apply, open, or operate without an inevitable lawsuit by outside groups or a cutoff of funding by the state. To which I say, yeah, that's kind of how the law works. Like, you don't get to complain, you're like, it's like a child going to an amusement park and saying, this thing says I got to be 48 inches to ride this ride. Well, unless the courts step in, I, at 42 inches, cannot get on this ride. How dare they exclude me? It's like, the rules are there for everyone's safety. That's why it's there. Like, if you don't fit the description, you shouldn't be applying. And if you want to open a private religious school, which is clearly what these people want to do, then go do it. There is no law that says you are owed tax dollars because of your religion. Isn't that the theme of today, from that Oklahoma essay writer girl to this, which is there are Christians who believe they are owed whatever it is they want. And if the rules are applied to them and it hurts them, it's always persecution and not just, no, that's what the rules are and you didn't listen. Like, yeah, they can't open up. Religious charter schools should not exist. They cannot legally exist. And as I've said so many times before, public money should never be siphoned into religious projects that explicitly don't fulfill the obligations that public schools have, such as non-discrimination, professional standards, a curriculum grounded in fact and not dogma. This is not about school choice. This is a deliberate attempt to tear down the wall between separation of church and state. So this lawsuit tries to argue that there's nothing wrong with taxpayer dollars going to religious schools. In fact, the lawyers say Tennessee has a voucher program and they allow public dollars to go to private religious schools. But that's not a fair comparison because the law, when it comes to charter schools, says a private school cannot become a charter school. Like the voucher law says you can use this money to attend whatever school you want. And if that's a private school, so be it. And that's why the US Supreme Court said, if you're allowing people to use it as at a private school, you can't say no to a private religious school. And they opened that door a little bit. But when it comes to charter schools, it's not like other private schools can suddenly become a charter school while maintaining whatever it is that kept them private. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't get what they're trying to argue there. It doesn't make any sense. And if a court was ever dumb enough to open that door and allow taxpayer dollars to fund religious schools, it would destroy public education in this country. Because every private Christian school in the country would suddenly decide to become a charter school and steal that sweet, sweet taxpayer public school money. Because what do conservative Christians want to do? They want to destroy public education. So there's another aspect of this that I want to share with you, which is that the lawyers for this lawsuit, the ones defending the Christian school, it's a small law firm called Consovoy McCarthy. And the reason they are relevant in this story is because CNN wrote about them last year. Here's the headline from CNN. This small conservative law firm is landing big wins at the Supreme Court. And specifically, the lawyers at Consovoy McCarthy have argued 11 appeals at the Supreme Court, including a landmark case in 2023 that ended affirmative action in college admissions. So just a bunch of white supremacists, even though they would never use that term to describe themselves. 5 of its current 9 partners clerked for conservative Justice Clarence Thomas, the biggest white supremacist of them all. Like, that's the people they're using to file this lawsuit. That's the legal company they are using here, which just seems relevant. There was a local news outlet that pointed out the same law firm wrote to the Supreme Court back in Oklahoma when that Catholic charter school was trying to get taxpayer dollars. Consovoy McCarthy wrote a letter on behalf of former Republican Oklahoma attorneys general saying, hey, Supreme Court, you should totally allow this to happen. And it didn't work. And now they're trying this in Tennessee. So I don't know where this lawsuit's going to go. I don't really know that they have a case because it's not like they submitted an application and even got rejected. So right now, church-state separation groups haven't even gotten involved in this. But one news outlet did get a very interesting reaction from a Knox County Board of Education member. And check this out. We received the following general comment from board member Stephen Triplett. About the lawsuit. As a Christian, my hope is that more students in our community come to know Jesus as their Savior and Lord. This is the dude who's on the board of the public school system. That matters more to me than anything else. I will always support the advancement of the gospel. If the board takes a vote on this school, I will recuse myself from voting due to personal ties to the school's founders. Yet even still, I will always support Christ in the public square. Like, thanks, we weren't asking about that. And like, can you try doing your job? But okay, good on that guy for saying he's going to recuse himself. He has no business being on a public school board. But the thing is, other board members are well within their rights to reject this school. It's not even complicated. some charter schools are just bad ideas. And some, like this one, are bad ideas and flat out illegal. Christians are not owed their own taxpayer funded schools just because they feel like indoctrinating kids with other people's money. I want to point out that the Knoxville News Sentinel pointed out there were a couple other issues with the application that they wanted to fill out. Check this out. While Wilberforce's dispute seemingly is with the state because they don't like the law, the nonprofit chose to sue the Knox County Board of Education. The nonprofit filed organizational paperwork with the state on November 21st under a registered agent who is a West Knoxville attorney who could not immediately be reached for comment, but the paperwork filed listed the organization's religious type as non-religious. Like, do any of these people know what they're doing? It's very strange. Okay, last thing I want to say about this. There's one other element that could go somewhere here, which is that Wilberforce Academy, as I mentioned earlier, they say that a purely secular education is necessarily an inferior one. But they say, if you don't allow us to open up our religious charter school, we still want to open up a secular one. But they say the law doesn't allow that because the sponsoring group is still a religious group. And they say, in our view, providing a good non-religious education would still glorify God by preparing students' hearts and minds to serve God, though in a lesser way that falls short of a proper, explicitly Christian education. And here's the thing. That may be the opening that they need. Because when everything else they're saying points to how Christian they want to make this school, it's kind of hard to believe that they could open up a secular school without bringing religion into it. But I am worried that if they're blocked from starting a secular charter school because they are religious, I do wonder if that case would have any legal heft. I don't know. But in any case, religious charter schools are not about school choice. They are nothing more than a Trojan horse to destroy church-state separation and public education. That's why government approval, that's why these people want government approval to open a school that openly rejects non-believing teachers, that evangelizes students, and just reshapes the whole curriculum around a conservative Christian point of view. And they think they are owed taxpayer dollars to do this. That cannot become the new normal. That's why courts have to reject this strategy, not just because the law requires it, but because the stakes are really high, right? Public schools are supposed to be for everybody, and charter schools are meant to preserve that tradition. And Wilberforce proudly rejects that cause. Like, they want to indoctrinate kids, and they think taxpayers should foot the bill for it. And if the courts fail on this one, if this lawsuit gets anywhere, the ramifications are going to ripple well beyond Knoxville. So keep an eye out on this case. It's a scary one, but it's still very early. I will stop there here. What questions we got here? Where the hell are the atheist STEM-focused charter schools at? You know what? I will tell you this. There have been one or two attempts at starting pro-atheist STEM-focused charter schools. And in general, there's just not a lot of support for them. One, because it's really hard to run a good charter school. And two, most of the atheists, I mean, generally speaking here, most atheists want to support good public schools. They don't want to create alternatives to public schools that are focused on what? Math or science? Guess what? There are plenty of public schools that focus on math and science. And if your kid is good at math or science, you can take extra classes or higher level classes for them. So most atheists are not in the business of saying public schools suck, let's create a secular alternative. No, they want to support and elevate good public schools. That's why you don't see a lot of pro-atheist STEM-focused charter schools. The desire just isn't there, as opposed to conservative Christians who can't handle being around other people who are not like fully indoctrinated. So they got to create their own little bubble so they feel normal. So is that one college junior in Oklahoma going to be their new teacher? At this rate, it's the only job she's going to be able to find that is not working for a right-wing media outlet. She wants to be the next Riley Gaines. So at some point, she's going to be looking for a job. She's not going to be a pro tennis player, apparently. All right, we're done. I know it was a long one. Thank you for all of you for watching. Thank you to Den for helping me out. Remember, you could support the newsletter. You could sign up for the newsletter at friendlyatheist.com. You can also support the channel at patreon.com/Hemant. I should be back next Thursday like usual, so I hope you will join me then. And man, it's a long one. I'm going to go like massage my throat now. So have a good one. I will see you next week.